Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I bring you, what if Batman marries Harley Quinn? Harley Quinn has been beaten, smacked, and abused by her Mr. J way too long. So she decides to move in with Ivy. And what will happen after she meets a certain billionaire? Will she finally learn what true love really is? The story is called What is Love? The link of both the story and the author will be in the description down below. If you guys want more what if videos such as these, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more.
Harley Quinn stood there in the bathroom, trying her best to heal the fresh black eye that her pudding gave to her just today. But it wasn't his fault, she would think, it was mine. I shouldn't have bothered him. He was upset because every time he tried to rob a store or take someone hostage, the Batman would always show up and foil his devious plan. Harley winced when she put the wet, damp rag on her right eye. I was just trying to make him feel better. I just wanted to help him, comfort him, give him my love. Harley ran her finger over the bruise. But I'll never leave him, this is love, right? She thought to herself as she took off her head mask, revealing her long, wavy blonde hair cascade down past her shoulders to the middle of her back. She stared herself in the mirror and looked into her baby blue eyes. Harley sighed and came out of the bathroom and went into her room. This was the fourth time this month that he hit her. Harley quickly changed into normal clothes, which included a long-sleeved pink top and a black flowing skirt with black ballet flats. She pulled her hair into a ponytail, leaving one side bang out to cover her black eye. She quietly exited her room and went to the front door of their place. She looked over to see the Joker still scribbling plots on his desk. "I'm gonna go see Ivy, Mr. J won't be long puddin'," she said nervously as every word she said made her flinch, hoping that the Joker wouldn't hurt her again. Luckily for her, the Joker simply grumbled something and Harley quickly exited through the door. As Harley walked the streets of Gotham, she noticed couples young and old passing by and holding on to each other. Harley looked away. "Wish that could be me and my Miss J," she thought quietly. When she reached her destination, she knocked on the large door repeatedly. Harley saw the blinds in the window move and she waved. Locks on the door began to unlock until the door opened, revealing an augured-haired woman with a long green nightgown on, looking angry. "Harley, what are you dash dot?" She cut off her sentence when she saw the black bruise under the blonde bang. She grabbed Harley's hand and dragged her inside and shut the door. "Did he do this to you?" she growled as Harley sat down on the couch. Harley nodded sadly. "I made him mad red. It was me, Ivy." Ivy went into her kitchen and Harley could hear the noise of ice and a rip of paper towel. Ivy then came out and sat next to her friend and gave her the ice pack. "Harley, this is the second time this month," she exclaimed. "Fourth," Harley mumbled. Ivy looked taken aback. "I'm going to poison him," she said venomously. "Why? Why do you stay with him?" she asked, frustrated. Harley put the ice pack to her eye. "Because I love him," she said sadly. Poison Ivy just stared and examined the Harlequin. "So, you love a man who hits you?" she asked slowly. Harley looked at Ivy. "Listen, Mr. J, he just loses his temper often and I should know this. He's a sensitive guy," Harley said. "Sensitive?" Ivy laughed. "Oh yeah, he's sensitive. So sensitive that he has to go and gun down Gotham City one person at a time. Harley, if you don't leave him, you're going to die." Harley's head shot towards Ivy. "Die? No, he would never kill me. I mean, yeah, hit me around but not murder me in cold blood. Geez, Red, I mean, come on," Harley said, trying not to think about her puddin' pointing a gun at her. "Harles, you can stay here as long as you want. I have an extra bedroom and some other sheets," Ivy said, getting up and going to her closet and pulling out a thin, white sheet. Harley smiled and took the sheet out of her good friend's hand. "Thanks, Ivy," she said, looking down at her damp paper towel in which the ice melted in. With that, Ivy led Harley to the guest bedroom and helped her put the sheets and pillows on there. "I'll give you some money tomorrow so that you can go and buy yourself some stuff," Ivy said and left the room, closing the door behind her. Harley smiled and lay down on the bed. She couldn't get the image of the Joker out of her head. The white-gloved hand, the impact of the hit on her eyes. Harley turned on her side with a tear falling out of her bruised eye onto the pillow. Harley awoke to the rays of sun beating down on her through her bedroom window. She groaned and by instinct called the Joker. "Hey Puddin'." Harley stopped herself and looked around the room, remembering what happened the day before. "Oh, thought it was all a dream," she said, rubbing her head and then putting her hand on her eye. Harley flinched from the pain and ran to her mirror out of her bed. She looked at the black eye that covered her right eye. It swelled down and was beginning to light up. Harley sighed and left her bedroom and saw Ivy in the kitchen cooking. Ivy looked up and smiled. "Hey Harles, could you help me with the eggs? I have to check on my babies," she said. Harley nodded and took the spatula out of her friend's hand. Ivy went into the living room and took the water pot sitting on the floor and began watering her plants. Harley looked over at her friend and her plants. "Geez, Ivy sure is crazy about those weeds," Harley muttered to herself, but was loud enough for Ivy to hear. Poison Ivy looked over at her friend with one of her auburn-colored eyebrow cocked. "They're not weeds, they're beautiful babies that need attention," Ivy said, running her finger around the petals of the purple-colored flowers. Harley turned her attention back to her eggs and flipped one over. After she was done, she set them in a plate and sat down at the table. Ivy left her plants and sat down at the same table Harley sat at. "The swelling went down, I see," she said. Harley nodded, taking small bites of her egg. "Harley, you're not going back to the clown, are you?" Ivy asked, hoping her best friend would say no. And to her pleasure, Harley shook her head. Ivy took a breath of relief. "That's good. Now, I told you yesterday that I would give you some money to go shopping, so I'll be right back." Ivy got up and walked into her room. Harley could hear shuffling around in the room and called to her. "Red, aren't you gonna come with me?" Harley asked. "No, I can't. I stole some ingredients from some stores and I can't be seen for a while," Ivy called back. Harley imagined in her head Ivy stealing soil and seeds from a gardening shop and chuckled quietly. Ivy came out and gave Harley a credit card and about $120 in cash. "Here," Ivy said, handing the card in cash to Harley. "Spend as much as you want, with what happened to you, you deserve it." Harley smiled and hugged her friend. "Thanks a lot, Red." Ivy struggled out of Harley's bear hug and coughed. "Anything to keep you away from that bozo," she said with hatred in her voice. Harley got dressed and went out the door, but not before making sure her bang hit her bruised eye. Harley got out of the taxi she took to get to the shopping district of Gotham. Harley looked at the mannequins in the windows and saw their perfect faces without any bruises or cuts. She walked for a while until a certain store caught her attention. It was named Maggie's Couture. Harley smiled and went inside. The clothing store was big and women were all around shopping, and some with their boyfriends or husbands holding onto their bags trailing behind. Harley began to think about her past relationships. Other than the Joker, she did have one other boyfriend in high school, but she found out he was unfaithful and broke it off. "Well, at least he didn't hit me," Harley thought. "Can I help you?" a voice broke off Harley from her thoughts. She turned to see a young employee about her age with chocolate brown hair and dark brown eyes. She looked very friendly, especially with that large smile on her face. Hello, I'm Harley, an imp just looking around," Harley said nervously. She really didn't want anyone in her face because she was afraid they'd see her black eye. "Oh, well, my name is Hazel and I just couldn't help but notice you looked like you were lost. I could help you find something," Hazel said. Harley couldn't help but smile. No one had ever been so nice to her, except but Ivy. Ever since she became Harley Quinn, people looked at her with fear and only thought of her as psychotic like the Joker. The Joker. Mr. J, no matter how hard Harley tried, she couldn't stop thinking of him. He had been with her for so long now. He had accepted her and loved her. Love. Didn't he? Love her? Sure, I would like that. Harley let the woman lead her around the store, showing her different blouses and skirts. Harley came across a couple that caught her attention and Hazel took them. Okay, I'll be right back, Harley, just going to put these on the counter. Harley nodded, watching the lady walk away. Sweet gal, Harley said to herself. Harley was searching through the everyday dresses and spotted a magenta-colored dress. She walked over and examined it. It was very soft and the sleeves were long and it stopped right above her knees. Harley smiled and took the dress off the rail. I could shorten the sleeves, she thought. Harley decided to go try it on in the fitting room. When she was done, she came out of the room and went up to a large mirror. Harley couldn't help but spin in the dress and loved how the bottom flowed as she moved. That dress looks lovely on you, miss, a deep voice said. Harley turned quickly to see none other than Playboy billionaire Bruce Wayne. Harley was shocked to see him and she gave a small smile. Oh, hello Mr. Wayne, she said. Bruce got up from the sofa he sat on and walked over to her. Harleen Quinzel, it's nice to see you again, he said. Nice? Does he not remember me hitting him with a mannequin arm? Harley thought. It's nice to see you too, Mr. Wayne, she said. Bruce shook his head. Please, call me Bruce, he insisted. Harley nodded. Bruce. Gotcha. Bruce smiled. So what are you doing here? He asked, trying to make conversation. I'm just shopping, you know, girls like me love to shop and stuff, she said, laughing nervously. What about you? Harley asked, wondering why he was in a women's clothing store. I'm here with my girlfriend, Veronica, he said. As if right on cue, a woman with light brown hair came out of a fitting room. Oh, Bruce. I finally found what I was looking for. Come. We have to go if we are going to make it on time for the restaurant, Veronica said, pulling Bruce with her. Bruce Wayne complied, and before leaving, he turned back around and waved. Goodbye, Ms. Quince, he said. Harley stood there feeling sorry for the man. Poor guy, I wouldn't be able to stand a woman like that, Harley said, going back inside her fitting room and changing back. Harley went to the cashier counter and gave the credit card to Hazel. So, sis, you see Bruce Wayne in here? She asked. Harley shook her head. No, she said, laying right off the top of her head. Well, he was here and with company too, Hazel said, smiling, and handed Harley her bag and credit card. Harley quickly thanked the woman and left the store. Harley began thinking of Bruce Wayne. Such a nice guy. She, though, with a smile forming on her lips. Ivy was watering her plants when the doorbell rang. She put her water pot down and opened the door to reveal Harley with 4 large bags. Harley quickly walked in and dropped her bags on the couch. Ivy cocked her eyebrow. So tell me, how much exactly did you spend? She asked, giving Harley a look. Harley smiled. You said to spend how much I want, Harley complained. Ivy smiled. Well, I can see you're getting back to your old self again, that's good, Ivy said, sitting in a chair in the living room. So, what did you buy? Harley smiled and rummaged through her bag, showing Ivy her blouses, skirts, shirts, and some shoes. What's in that bag? Ivy asked, nodding her head towards the bright blue bag that had the words beauty supply on it in a script design. Harley went inside the bag and took out many things. I got lip gloss, mascara, blush, a brush, a comb, some hair stuff, and I got. Harley took out a container and smiled at Ivy's reaction. Hair dye, Ivy exclaimed. Harley nodded. Yeah, red. Imp gonna dye it back to its original color. Black, Harley said, grinning. Ivy cocked her head to the side. Funny, I can't see you with black hair, and I always thought you were a blonde, she said. Harley shook her head. Nah, everyone thinks that. Guess I can pull it off pretty good, huh? Harley grabbed her friend's hand and pulled her towards the kitchen. Come and help me, Red. I want to see how I look with my old hair color again. Ivy rolled her eyes and smiled at her friend's excitement. Harley sat down in the living room with a towel wrapped around her hair. She was reading Gotham's famous gossip magazine, the Gotham Gossip. Harley got bored and turned on the TV and browsed through the channels. She stopped on the news when she saw a familiar face pop up on the television set. Once again, the Dark Knight has taken down the evil clown, the Joker, the newswoman said. Harley smirked. Good job, Bats. Harley muttered to herself. Harley touched the towel. Ivy. I think I'm ready. Harley called. Ivy curled Harley's bangs and finished using one of the sprays. She kept Harley away from a mirror because she wanted to surprise her. Are ya done yet? Harley asked, getting impatient. Hold on, Harles, I'm almost done, Ivy reassured. After a minute of brushing her hair, Ivy smiled. Okay, turn around. Harley turned to her mirror and gasped. She brought her hands to her now black hair and couldn't help but smile. She looked amazing. You know, this was a good idea. I mean, if the Joker tries to find you, it would be difficult because he would be looking for a blonde, Ivy said. Harley nodded, but after thinking about the Joker she frowned. You don't think he'll come looking for me, do you? She asked. Ivy gave her friend a small smile. I don't really know Harles, but if he does, we'll be ready for him, she said, clenching her fist. Ivy looked at the clock on Harley's side table. Okay, this took hours, so it's time for me to go to bed. Night, Harley, she said, walking out of the bedroom and closing the door on her way out. Harley put all of her hair things and set them up on her dresser. Before she turned off her light, she looked at herself in the mirror again. Guess I should have kept it black, she thought, and smiled at her reflection. Harley walked into the public library with sunglasses on, hoping no one would recognize her. She looked around and found an unoccupied computer and dashed over there quickly and sat down. Harley sighed and began to type on the computer. Hope I can find some jobs that will accept me, hopefully they won't recognize my name, Harley thought to herself. Now that the Joker was out of her life, Harley wondered how she would live a normal life now. It would be difficult. It's not like she could forget about her past that easily. With all the things that she's done, it would almost seem impossible. But could she live a normal life? Could she be able to do that? Harley thought back to when she first got out of Arkham Asylum for good behavior and was declared sane. She remembered when she went shopping in a clothing store and how everything just went downhill for her when she thought the security guard was trying to send her back to prison. Harley sighed sadly. If she didn't outburst like that, she probably wouldn't have been sent back to Arkham. Harley then remembered when she tripped and Bruce Wayne caught her. Bruce Wayne. Harley began to think about him and a blush crept up on her cheeks. He really is a sweet man. Why am I blushing? Harley thought. I can't like him, it's just a crush. Yeah, just a crush, Harley convinced herself. Harley noticed a woman with blonde hair sit next to her through her sunglasses. Hello, is this seat taken? The woman asked. Harley shook her head and continued typing. The blonde woman held her hand out. Hi, I'm Selena Kyle. Harley froze up. Oh no. It's Cats. Harley pushed her black sunglasses up her nose and shook Selena's hand. Nice to meet you, she said. She took her hand away and continued typing. So, what are you doing here? Harley asked, wondering what the hell Catwoman was looking up at a public library. Well, I heard about these group of people who are taking these stray cats off the streets, and well, I'm trying to find a way to help the cats. So I'm just looking for more information on the topic, she said. Harley could tell that the feline was lying straight through her teeth. Harley nodded. That's interesting. Harley clicked the print button and quickly left the computer. When her resume was done printing, she grabbed her paper and speed walked out the door. Selena looked at the door to the library with a confused look on her face. What a weird woman. Anyways, back to tonight's plan, she muttered to herself, looking back at the computer screen. Harley was sewing the last black button on a cerulean suit jacket that she bought the other day while shopping in Gotham's shopping area. It also came with a nice, black skirt that stopped right below her knee. What is Harley doing with these clothes, you may ask? Well, today, Harley Quinn no. Harleen Quinzel is going job hunting. Harley put on the jacket and skirt. She slipped on sheer stockings and put her black heels on as well. Harley ran a brush through her hair and looked at herself in the mirror and smiled at her appearance. She looked very professional. Harley put her resume in her briefcase and walked out to the living room. Ivy. I'm going out to find a job, she called, but was greeted with silence. Harley went into the kitchen. Ivy, she called. Harley looked and saw a green sticky note on the fridge. Harles, went out to get some things, I'll be back later. Left an extra key under the sofa cushion for you to keep. Good luck today. Ivy. Harley said, reciting the note. Under the sofa cushion? Really, Harley said to herself, laughing while getting the key from under the cushion. Before walking out, Harley took a deep breath. Get ready, Harley, she said, finally locking the door behind her. Harley stood outside an office building and looked at the large door. Here we go, she said, straightening her black glasses. Harley got new glasses since she got rid of her old ones once she joined the Joker. She walked and saw a woman at a large desk straight ahead. Harley walked up to the desk for what seemed like slow motion for her. Hello, can I help you? The brunette asked in a friendly tone. Yes, Harley said and took out her resume. I'm looking for a job, nothing big but maybe a small position like receptionist, Harley said. The woman nodded slowly, taking the paper from Harley. Okay, let me read your resume, she said, putting on her reading glasses. The quietness between them made Harley nervous as she watched the brunette's eyes shift from left to right, left to right, left to right. The brunette finally looked up and cleared her throat. Well, this is a very amazing resume, Harleen. But I have to check up with my manager quickly. Hold on. The brunette pressed a button on a machine in front of her. Hello, Mr. Terrence, we have a woman here who's looking for a job. Can you come down, please? She asked. Sure thing, Melanie, the man responded. Melanie looked at Harley. He'll be here in a minute. Harley nodded. The two women talked for a little bit about small things like clothing in stores. The man who Harley assumed was Mr. Terrence walked up to the two women. Melanie gave the man Harley's resume and smiled. Terrence took the resume and read it over. This is an outstanding resume, Ms. Harleen Quinn's . He stopped in mid-sentence and reread her name. Quinzel, he repeated in a whispered voice. Harley's face dropped, the smiled and turned to sheer horror. Oh no, the man turned to Melanie and told her to call security. No, I didn't do anything wrong, Harley said, defending herself. She wasn't a criminal anymore. If you don't get out of here, I will call the cops, the man said viciously. Harley snatched the paper out of the man's hand and ran off out of the building. She ran for what seemed like a lifetime, accidentally pushing people out of the way. She stopped and took a breath. I knew this would happen, she said, putting a hand to her head. Harley looked up ahead and saw Wayne Enterprises. Okay, Harley, only one more place. Hopefully, we won't repeat the same thing that happened at the last place. Harley walked and entered the spiral door of the large building and saw people moving up and about. She decided to take the elevator to a random floor and try her chances. Harley waited in the elevator and watched the lights of the numbers light and fade. Finally, she reached the 7th floor of the building and went inside. There were cubicles and people typing on their computers at high speed. She looked around and saw an office up ahead. Harley walked straight and assumed that this office was the boss. She knocked on the door and heard a faint come in. She opened the door and stopped dead at who she saw in the chair behind the desk. It was none other than Bruce Wayne. Is God doing this to me? She asked herself. Bruce looked up and smiled. Please come in, he said, getting up from his chair. Harley closed the door and walked forward towards the man. He held out his hand and she took it. Hello, I'm Bruce Wayne. What can I do for you? He asked, smiling charmingly. Don't blush, Harley repeated in her head. Hello, I'm looking for a job. It can be any position too. I just need one. Harley cursed herself for sounding so needy. She handed her resume to him and he gladly took it, reading it over. Bruce Wayne handed it back to her. Okay, what's your name? He asked. Harley cleared her throat and breathed heavy. Harleen Quinzel, she said plainly. Bruce Wayne looked up and examined the woman in front of him. Harley Quinn, he asked, a smirk playing his face. Harley nodded. Well, you definitely changed your look. Especially your hair, he said. Harley touched her black hair. Yeah, I just thought I'd change it back to its original color. It was always black, not blonde, she said. Bruce Wayne nodded. It suits you. Harley felt a blush creep up on her cheek. Damn, I'm blushing. Bruce sat down on his desk and frowned when he saw Harley's black eye. It was almost clear, but Bruce knew a black eye when he saw one. Did someone give you that? He asked. Harley touched her eye and nodded. Yes, it was the Joker, but I don't run with the like of him anymore. I'm trying to change, she said confidently. Bruce Wayne smiled. Well, I need someone to be my personal secretary. A lot of things go on around here and I need someone to help me organize myself for them. Harley smiled. I can definitely do that job, she said. Well, Bruce said, standing up again and holding out his hand. Welcome to Wayne Enterprises, Harley, you start tomorrow. She gladly took his hand and grinned. I won't let you down. Harley got up early at 5:30 a.m., excited about her first day at work. She took a quick, hot shower and got dressed. When she was dressed, she made herself breakfast, which included bacon, eggs, toast with butter, and a glass of OJ. When she was done, Harley put her dishes in the sink and went to Ivy's room. Harley tapped lightly 3 times before opening the door to her friend's room. Bye, Ivy. I'm going to work, I'll be home at 4. Maybe, she said. Harley heard a soft groan and shut the door. She grabbed her black briefcase and long coat and left the house. Taxi, Harley called loudly. The yellow taxi cab passed by her and Harley made an annoyed face. Oh no, you don't. Not today. Harley put 2 fingers in her mouth and made a loud, sharp whistle. The car stopped and made a loud screech on the road before reversing and stopping in front of Harley. Harley got into the back seat inside. Where to, miss? The cab driver asked. Wayne Enterprises, please, Harley said, feeling happy and relaxed. Harley entered the 7th floor and looked around. Hello, are you Harleen Quinzel? A woman with dirty blonde hair asked, coming in front of Harley. Harley smiled. Yes, I am, she responded happily. The blonde held out her hand. I'm Diana. Mr. Wayne asked me to show you your station, she said cheerfully. Harley shook Diana's hand and nodded. All right, she responded. Harley followed Diana to an area on front of Bruce Wayne's office that had a large desk and many shelves behind it. The desk had many office supplies on it and had a nameplate on it that read Harleen Quinzel in gold. There was a black computer on the desk along with a printer. Harley put her briefcase down on her desk and sat down in the leather seat. She smiled and leaned back, then turned to Diana. Thank you, Diana, she said. Diana nodded. You can talk to me anytime, Harleen, Diana said with a friendly voice. Please, call me Harley. Everyone does, Harley said. Diana smiled and walked back to her cubicle. Harley looked around and smiled. This is amazing. Great job, Harles, Harley thought to herself. I see you got yourself settled in. Harley turned to see Bruce smiling at her with his hands in his pocket. She quickly stood up and straightened her skirt, smiling and nodded. Yes, thank you again, Mr. Wayne, Harley said. You're very welcome, Harleen. I would like you to come into my office so we can go over the calendar for the day, he said, smiling down at her. Harley nodded and followed him into his office. She sat down as he went into his desk drawer and took out a couple of papers stapled together. He gave the papers to Harley and leaned on his desk, hands in pocket. Harley looked over the papers and looked at him in the eyes. She stared at his beautiful cerulean blue eyes. They were so gorgeous and Harley couldn't break away from them. She cleared her throat. "So, this is the calendar, I assume?" she said. Bruce nodded. "Yes, you have one on your own computer and this is a copy for you. I have one also and I'll need you to tell me my meetings and appointments," he said. Harley nodded. "All right, this seems very simple," she said, getting up with a smile plastered on her face. Exiting, Harley turned to Bruce. "Oh, and you have a meeting in 5 minutes on the 10th floor," she said, closing the door. Bruce smiled and looked at a folder on his desk that had Harley's information. He smiled and took out her picture. It was her new company photo that had her pictured with her long, black, curly hair and a smile that Bruce could tell was a true happy one. He began to wonder if this was really a good idea, giving Harley a job as his personal secretary. Bruce started to remember the many times he had fought her as Batman. He remembered a saying that someone told him years ago. It was that people deserve second chances, they deserve a chance to redeem themselves. He put the picture to lean against another picture frame that held a precious image of his mother and father. Well, if he was going to be working with her, he should get to know her more. He rubbed his chin and a smirk appeared on his face. Bruce Wayne had an idea. Harley was in the middle of typing up something when she heard a beep from her intercom. "Miss Quinzel, I have a favor to ask of you," Bruce's deep voice said. Harley pressed a button on the small box. "Of course, Mr. Wayne, anything," she responded. "Would you like to join me for coffee down the street?" Harley froze. Did he just ask me out, she thought. No. It's just coffee. Like acquaintances. Harley reassured herself. "Okay, Harley, sound professional." Harley pressed the button again. "Well, I haven't had my break yet, so, sure," she said, sounding a bit overly enthusiastic at the end. Harley mentally cursed herself for a second. "Good, I'll meet you downstairs," he responded, then followed by a beep. The call ended. Harley got up and put her coat on and walked towards the elevator. Why would he ask me to go out? There are plenty of beautiful ladies here, she asked herself. Harley pushed the button on the wall. "Going on your break, Harley?" Diana asked, turning around in her chair. Harley smiled. "Yeah, I'll be back soon." Diana smiled and turned back to her work. The elevator doors opened and Harley entered. She turned around in the elevator and saw straight ahead the door to Bruce's office open. She looked straight at him and saw that he was looking at her. Harley saw him smile until the elevator doors closed. Harley leaned back against the mirror in the elevator and sighed. "What are you doing, Harley?" she asked herself, putting a hand to her head. "You can't be having coffee with your boss. What next? A date? And besides, I have to be careful, Bruce Wayne is known to be a playboy." Harley straightened herself up as the elevator dinged. She walked out into the lobby, and then out in front of the building. Harley began thinking. Maybe something can happen between us. Harley shook her head. No way. What the hell am I thinking? Who would want to be with me? Harley Quinn, ex-henchgirl of the Joker. I'm surprised I even got a job. Sorry it took me so long. Harley turned to see Bruce Wayne with, as always, his charming smile. Harley couldn't help but add a smile as well. It's all right, Mr. Wayne. Bruce cocked his eyebrow. What? What did I say? Harley asked nervously, wondering what she did. Harley, when we're alone you can call me Bruce, he said. Harley sighed in relief. All right, Bruce. He put an arm around her shoulder and led her down the street. Harley gulped. Is he no? He's just being a gentleman. Harley relaxed and saw that Bruce reached into his pocket and put on sunglasses. Hiding your identity, she teased with a smirk on her face. He looked down at her. so people won't recognize me and interrupt us," he responded. Harley looked down, blushing a little. "That's sweet, he really is a nice guy," a voice said in Harley's head. "But don't trust him. He's still Bruce Wayne. Boy billionaire, Mr. Playboy," another voice in her head argued. Harley has been having these two voices in her head ever since she got hit by the Joker. She called them certain and doubt. She always wanted to believe in certain, but doubt always came back crushing her beliefs, just like the Joker. Harley frowned and kept her head down. Bruce looked at her and saw her face. "Harley, are you all right?" he asked. Harley's head shot up and a small, sad smile played her face. "Yeah," she lied. They entered the coffee shop and bought one coffee for Bruce and a mocha frappuccino for Harley. They both sat down at a table in front of a window. Harley played with her drink by twirling the straw in a circular motion in her drink. Bruce noticed how quiet Harley became and decided to start a conversation. "Harley, are you all right?" he asked, looking at her. Harley nodded. "Yeah, I am." She lied the second time to him. "You're lying," he said plainly. She looked at him and saw his serious face. He looked so familiar, she thought. "No, I'm not," she said again, getting frustrated. "I can see it on your face," he said. Harley leaned back with her arms crossed. "All right, since you can tell I'm lying, can you tell what I'm so upset about?" "Huh?" she asked in an angry tone. Harley caught a look on Bruce's face and quickly regretted her attitude. She unfolded her arms and sighed. "I'm so sorry, Bruce. I'm just going through a lot," she said. Bruce sat up. "Would you like to talk about it?" Harley looked at him in the eye and truthfully, she needed to talk to someone. Not just Ivy, but someone. "As you know, I left the Joker and the criminal life behind," she said. Bruce nodded, latching on to every word she spoke. "But, it's kind of hard to forget my past. Especially him. I mean, people think it was great being the Joker's sidekick, but it wasn't all fun and lollipops," she said. "How so?" Bruce asking, even though he knew the answer. "Well, as you can see, he hit me. More than once actually. A lot. He got angered easily," she said, rubbing her right eye. Bruce nodded. As Batman, he saw those moments when the Psycho would hit Harley. Deep down he felt sorry for her, and even as Batman he felt angry at how the Joker treated to her. But why she always went back to him? He had no clue. Bruce cleared his throat. "Please don't mind me asking this, but did you and the Joker ever dot up?" Harley saw him blush and couldn't help but giggle at his attitude right now. "You mean have sex?" Bruce grunted, and Harley understood. Gee, you'd think as a playboy he wouldn't be ashamed to say the word, she thought. "No, we never, and I don't want to until after I'm married," Harley said. "My best friend actually made fun of me for it, but hey, I guess I'm old-fashioned and I like that way." Bruce smiled at her answer. "My mother was the same. She loved old-fashioned things." Harley put her hands under her head and leaned on the table. "What happened to your parents?" she asked, but would regret it in a second. "They were murdered," he said gravely. Harley's smile went away quickly and she sat up. I am sorry, I shouldn't have asked that," she said. Bruce shook his head. "No, it's all right." Harley thought of something quickly. "You know, my father died also. He was in a car crash. And my mother, well, I don't really know where she is," Harley said. She saw his expression go sad. "I'm sorry, Harley," he responded. "It's all right, I hardly remember my mother, but my father taught me everything. And yes, I was a daddy's girl, so I was spoiled." Bruce smiled a bit at that statement. "But he did teach me how a man should treat a lady, and I definitely forgot about that one," she said, looking down at her drink. Bruce put a hand over hers and took it. Harley looked at their hands together and then at her boss. Harley, it wasn't your fault. It was that madman's fault. No one should be treated like that. And I bet your father would be proud because you're getting your life back on track and taking action." His words made Harley's heart become warmer and she felt this lump in her throat like she was about to cry. "Don't you dare cry, you little wimp." Doubt kept bullying her. Harley sighed and smiled. She kept doing that a bit often lately. "Thank you, Bruce. That was very sweet of you to say." Bruce kissed her hand and smiled even more. "Oh God, he just kissed my hand. He had to kiss my hand. Not that I didn't like it." After a minute, they both left and went back to the office building. After they arrived on the 7th floor, they parted their ways. Diana looked at Harley and gave her a look. "Did you enjoy your break?" she asked in a bubbly voice. Harley smiled while looking back at his office door. "Yeah, it was great." Harley walked back to her desk, took her coat off, and sat down. Harley looked at the large office doors that led to Bruce's office and smiled. That break wasn't so bad. Maybe something could work. Who knows? So he just called your intercom and asked you out, Ivy asked, standing in front of Harley, who was sitting on the couch flipping through the channels on the TV. Ivy, could you move a bit over?" Harley asked. Poison Ivy just stayed right in front of her best friend with hands on hips, glaring down at Harley. "No, you're giving me details now. This is Bruce Wayne." The billionaire. Ivy took the remote out of Harley's hands and turned the television on mute. She then sat down on the couch next to her with folded arms. "Come on, Harles, spill." Harley breathed in deeply and released the breath slowly. "Okay, so he just asked me if I would like to join him for coffee, and I agreed because I didn't have my break yet." Harley explained. "So, a date?" Ivy asked, getting even more interested. "No. Not a date. Just two acquaintances having coffee and talking," Harley said, defending herself. "Harley, are you going to well, Ivy asked with wide-eyed. Harley made a face. "Geez, Red, I seriously don't want to know what goes on in your head," Harley said. "So? That's a yes?" Ivy asked in an excited voice. "No. I told you, Ivy, until after I'm married," Harley said, glaring at her friend. Ivy shrugged her shoulders. "Whatever." Harley was about to ask her something until she saw Batman on the news. Harley grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. And in this news, Batman has once again put away the Penguin for stealing the rare swan diamond at the Gotham Museum of Natural History. Our newsman Robert Darlington is in Arkham Asylum covering this report. The news anchorwoman said. The screen then turned to the newsman who was standing inside Arkham. Many doctors and nurses were behind him in the background. "Thanks, Joan. I am here inside Arkham Asylum where the Batman has once again notoriously put the Penguin behind bars." The TV then showed Batman dragging a handcuffed Penguin and handing him over to the doctors. "We talked to a couple of the employees here to ask of their opinions on the matter." The newsman turned to a blonde woman in doctor's uniform. "I don't know how he does it. I just don't know. He comes in here every week bringing in these criminals and it seems that he never gets tired. I'm amazed actually. He does this all by himself. I mean, yes, there's Batgirl and Robin, but he does the most work." The screen turned back to Robert. "Well, there you have it, Joan, what the people of Gotham have to say about our dear Dark Knight." Joan reappeared. "Thanks, Robert, he really is a hero." That's all for tonight, ending the 5 o'clock news. Thank you for tuning into Gotham News. I'm Joan and have restful night, Gotham. The news ended right there. Harley turned to Ivy, the words the doctor said. "He does it all by himself. All by himself," Harley repeated to herself. Ivy turned to Harley, hearing what she said but not understanding. "What?" she asked. Harley completely tuned to her friend with a smile on her face. "Ivy? You know I'm trying to become a good person, right?" Poison Ivy raised an eyebrow and nodded slowly. "And what better way to become a good person than by helping Gotham's hero?" Ivy's eyes widened. Wait, Harley, you don't mean, before Ivy could speak anymore, Harley dashed to her bedroom and shut the door. Ivy ran to Harley's room and saw Harley take out 2 large, fabric rolls. One red and one black. Are you going to try and make your costume again? Ivy asked in an annoyed voice. Harley shook her head and muffled a no with a black fabric in her mouth. She took the cloth out her mouth and looked up at her friend. Go, I'll show you later, she said with a smile on her face. Ivy left the room hoping her friend wasn't doing what she thought. But she's been wrong before. It was 1 o'clock in the morning when Poison Ivy felt someone shaking her to get up. Ivy! Ivy! Get up! It's ready! Harley said enthusiastically. Ivy gave Harley a death glare, but Harley didn't care. Come on! Harley ran back to her room leaving a tired, half-awake Ivy crawling out of bed and rubbing her eyes. Ivy walked down the hall to Harley's room yawning. Harley, I swear on my mother's flower bed I'm going to kill Y dashed up. She stopped dead in the doorway of Harley's bedroom. Harley had one of Ivy's training dummies in her bedroom, but with clothes on. And the clothes are what shocked Ivy. It was a dark black jumpsuit, with a long red cape. It had red gloves and on the dummy's face was a black mask that was similar to Batman's except it showed the mouth and nose. Harley had the dummy wear long black boots with heels. But what Ivy couldn't rip her eyes from was the symbol on the chest area. The same symbol of Batman's bat except in red. The costume was an exact replica of Batman's, except it was much more feminine and the colors were Harley's old costume colors, red and black. Harley modeled in front of the costume and smiled widely with her hands on her hips. Say hello to Batwoman. Harley was at her desk looking over the schedule today for Bruce Wayne. She pressed the button and waited for his voice to pop up. Yes, Ms. Quinzel, he asked. Harley smiled even though she knew he couldn't see. You have a meeting in 10 minutes on the 8th floor, Mr. Wayne. Harley responded. Thank you, Ms. Quinzel, he said, followed by a beep. Harley looked at her watch and decided to take her break. She put on her coat and walked towards the elevator. Taking your daily break, Harley? Diana asked, smiling at her coworker. Harley faced Diana and smiled. Yeah, I have some things to buy actually. The elevator bell dinged and opened. Harley walked inside and waved to her friend. Ciao. As the elevator doors closed, Diana laughed lightly. What a curious woman. Harley entered a store called Gizmos that sold all sorts of gadgets and items in that category. She walked up the counter and spoke to a blonde-haired woman. Hi, I was just wondering if you sold any of these items? Harley asked, taking out a folded paper out of her coat pocket. Harley gave the paper to the woman and watched her read the list. The woman smiled and began to walk to the back. Come with me, she said, waving her hand. Harley smiled and followed the lady into the back of the store that had boxes upon boxes stacked together. The woman opened a lid of a large dark blue box. By the way, I'm Lucinda, she said. I'm Harley. Lucinda took out a red grappling hook and handed it to Harley. The raven-haired woman examined the weapon. So, how long does it reach? Harley asked. About 100 yards. Lucinda said, smirking. Harley looked up at the woman in shock. Wow, that's long. Harley said, trying to imagine she climbing up a building. Lucinda took a pen out of her pants pocket and crossed out the item on the list. It says here weapon like the Batarang on this list, the employee said with an eyebrow raised and a confused face. Harley tried to think of something quickly. Yeah, this is all for a costume party over at my job tonight, and I wanted to go as the Dark Knight himself, she said, hoping the woman would buy her fib. The woman smiled. Oh, all right. Why didn't you say so? The woman rummaged through another box and took out a silver weapon the same size of the Batarang, but not in the same shape. It was like the shape of a regular boomerang. Harley took the weapon and looked at it. Sorry, but that's all we have, Lucinda said. Harley thought for a moment. Well, could you personalize it into the shape of a bat? I'll pay extra if I have to," Harley said. Lucinda smiled and chuckled. "No, you don't have to pay extra and you'll have all of this ready in 2 hours," Lucinda said. Harley smiled. "Thank you so much," she said, shaking Lucinda's hand. Harley checked her watch and saw that she had only a couple of minutes left for her break. She sat down at a table in the cafe and took a bit of her turkey sandwich. Harley's eyes wandered towards the television set hanging on the wall and listened in. Two-Face Harvey Dent has broken out of Arkham again and cops are questioning his whereabouts. This afternoon at approximately 1:37, masked men broke into Arkham and took Harvey Dent along with them while being armed with guns. Hopefully, Two-Face will be caught by Batman. Harley smiled. She just found out what her first mission was as Batwoman. Harley was in her bedroom putting her Batwoman suit on. She put batarangs into a pocket that she sewed on her red belt. She then attached her red grappling hook to her belt and clicked the belt on around her waist. Harley turned around to hear a knock at her door. She turned around to see Ivy with a hand on her hip and leaning against the doorframe. "You look good in that suit, Harles," Ivy said, complimenting her best friend. Harley smiled. "Thanks, Ivy," she said, putting her black mask on over her eyes. And the only makeup Harley put on was her red lipstick. She turned and looked at herself in the mirror. Her long, curly black hair cascaded down past her chest and down to her waist. "Guess who I'm going to fight?" Harley asked her friend. Ivy thought for a moment and then smiled. "The clown?" Harley shook her head. Poison Ivy's smile faded into a frown. "Damn, I thought I was right," she said. Harley put her hands on her hips. "Don't worry, Red, soon I'll face Bozo," Harley said. Ivy laughed at the name Harley gave him. "Your ex," Harley said. Ivy's eyes widened and a smile spread across her face that was rare to see. "Well, give my old love a punch for me," she said, watching Harley walk out the door. "Will do," Harley said before closing the door. Harley went into the backyard and took out her grappling hook. She pointed it towards the roof of another house and took off. After jumping from building to building, Harley rested on one of the tallest buildings and looked over Gotham City. "So, this must be how Batman feels," she said to herself. Harley began to think about where Harvey would be. Then a smile appeared on her face. "Got it." Inside a jewel shop, there were about a dozen men armed with guns while 6 of them were gathering up as many jewels as they could. There was a man there holding a machine gun also, who had half of his face badly burned. "Hurry up! I don't want to battle with the Batman." "Let's go," he yelled at the goons. Just then, the lights in the jewel shop went out. "He's here," one of the goons said in a scared voice. Harvey punched the man in the face, leaving a black eye for the goon. "Shut the hell up and let's go," he screamed. Just then, there were sounds of the goons getting beat up and punched and kicked in all directions. It was pitch black, so Harvey couldn't see anything. Harvey grabbed on to a sack of jewels and had 2 goons try to lead the way out. Just then, a tall figure jumped in front of them, knocking out one goon with a punch. The figure then showed itself to be Batman. Harvey held up a gun to one of the goons' head. "Boss! What are you doing?" the scared goon shouted. "Shut up!" Harvey yelled, pulling the goon close to him. "Don't come any closer, Bat, or the man gets it," he screamed. Batman backed away, not wanting to get anyone, especially a goon, shot. "Don't be stupid, Dent. He's one of your men," Batman said, trying to talk some sense into the two-faced man. Harvey laughed and cocked the gun. Just then, out of nowhere, someone kicked Harvey in the face. All the air was knocked out of him as he landed on the tile floor. He looked to see who kicked him and saw no one. He scrambled quickly and stood up, taking a pistol out of his shirt pocket. He was pointing the gun to Batman and to the darkness. Even the Dark Knight was confused and didn't know who kicked the man. "Show yourself!" Harvey screamed. Before he could say anything else, he was kicked in the back and landed face first on the floor again. And this time when he turned to see who it was, he saw her. She stood up straight in front of him with a sinister smile on her face. "You called," she taunted. Harvey's eyes shot open wide, and when she tried to reach for his gun, a heel came crashing down on his hand. Harvey screamed and held his hand tightly. "You should deal with him now," she said, looking towards a stunned Batman. But, of course, he didn't keep that look for long. Batman cuffed Harvey and looked towards the woman who was now standing on top of a desk. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman looked down and smiled as she took out her red grapple hook and aimed towards the ceiling window that she came through. "I'm your new partner whether you like it or not. I'm Batwoman." And with that, she took off into the night, leaving a curious Batman behind waiting for Gordon to show up. Gordon looked around at the crime scene in front of him. There were many things knocked over and broken glass scattered on the floor, along with many colorful jewels. He looked ahead at the Dark Knight standing in front of him. "Messy night?" Gordon asked. "Yes. But there was someone else here tonight," Batman said in his regular monotone voice. Gordon gave the Dark Crusader a confused look. "Like who?" "I thought you worked alone, except for Robin, Nightwing, and Batgirl," he asked. Before Batman could speak, Officer Harvey Bullock came up between them. "Hey boss, Montoya got some footage of another person that might answer your question." He looked towards Batman with a smirk. Batman gave the fat officer his same old bland look. The three walked into the security room of the shop and Montoya played the footage. They watched as another dark figure took down Harvey Dent. "Who is she?" Gordon asked, rubbing his chin. "I don't know. She just appeared out of the blue," the Dark Knight responded. "Maybe the Dark Knight has a bat of his very own," Montoya said, smiling. Officer Harvey chuckled, toothpick in mouth. Batman looked her way and gave her his signature look. "Trust me, I don't and will never." Gordon looked at him. "Well, do we have a name?" he asked. Batman turned away and pressed a button on his grappling hook. Before he took off, he turned to the three officers. "Batwoman." "Rough night, sir?" Alfred asked, walking up towards Bruce Wayne, who was still in his Batman costume typing on his large computer at rapid speed and zooming into the footage of Batwoman. He had his mask off with a hand rubbing his neck. "Not really, Alfred," he said, focusing on the keys. Alfred looked up to see the tape that recorded the incident at the jewelry shop. "A new lady friend, sir?" he asked. Bruce chuckled. "Nothing like that. Just a woman who calls herself Batwoman. She just appeared out of nowhere," he said, examining the captured video of her. Bruce went over all her features and still couldn't identify her. "Maybe she wants to help, sir," Alfred suggested. Bruce grumbled something and leaned back in his chair. "Perhaps you should give her a chance. I can see with the effort she put in tonight that she is a very skilled fighter. Let her fight by your side, Master Bruce, who knows? Maybe you two can become Gotham's crime fighting duo. I will lay out your suit for work tomorrow. Good night, Master Bruce." With that, Alfred walked away and left Bruce deep in thought. Looking at the image of Batwoman, Harley put her costume away in her closet and sat down on her bed in her pajamas with a brush in one hand and a scrunchie in the other. Poison Ivy came into the room with arms crossed and a smirk on her face. "So, how was it?" she asked. Harley put her hair up in one and lay down on her bed. She sighed and smiled brightly. "It was amazing. I went wham. And POW. And kick," Harley said, making motions with her arms and legs. Ivy laughed and sat at the edge of her best friend's bed. "Did you hit Harvey for me?" Ivy asked. "Oh, I stomped on his hand with my heel. I think I broke it actually," Harley said, sitting up. Ivy gave Harley a high five. "That's how you do it, Harley girl," Ivy responded. "And what was Batman's expression when you showed up?" Harley smirked. He was so bewildered. "I almost laughed," Harley said, lagging, but then stopped inside. "But we make a great team." Ivy looked at her friend with wide eyes and mouth agape. "Harles, are you falling in love or something?" Ivy asked. Harley jumped out of her thoughts. What? B-man? No. Of course not. I'm just his new partner whether he likes it or not. Harley said. Ivy smiled and nodded. That's what I thought. Besides, you have Bruce Wayne, Ivy said, exiting the room. Harley bolted up. I do not have him read. Harley said. Whatever you say. Future Mrs. Wayne. Ivy called from down the hall. Harley laid back down and a small smile crept up on her lips. As Harley was walking to her job when she stopped by a newsstand where many people were gathered. Harley saw the people watching the small TV set that was on the stand. Harley couldn't hear what the person was saying, but they showed the footage of her as Batwoman. Harley smiled widely. In just one night and I'm a superhero sensation, she thought. Harley took out $5 and bought a newspaper that had a picture of Batwoman on the cover. When she got to her job, Diana confronted her at her desk. Harley, did you hear what happened? Diana asked. Harley held up the newspaper she held in her hand. You mean Batwoman? She asked. Diana nodded. Yes, it seems our Bat does have a lady friend at his side. She said. Harley giggled. I just think she's someone who wants to help him. Become his new sidekick, you know, she said. Diana raised her eyebrows and smiled while walking away. Who knows? Harley sat down at her desk and began going through the schedule for Bruce Wayne today. Let's see, today is Wednesday SOA. Here we go, she said, taking out a paper and walking to Bruce's office door. She knocked lightly 3 times until she heard it come in. Harley entered and smiled at her boss as she took a seat. Bruce smiled as Harley began telling him about his schedule for the day. When she was about to leave, Bruce Wayne stopped her by taking her left hand. Harley turned around and looked at his hand holding hers. She looked up to meet his eyes. Those blue eyes. Harley couldn't help but look and stare into them. Harley, there is a fundraiser tonight at my house tonight and everyone here at the job is going, so would you like to come? He asked. Harley smiled. Sure. I believe I can make it tonight. Harley said, smiling. Bruce grinned. Excellent. I'll see you tonight then, he said, releasing her hand slowly. Harley nodded and exited the office. What am I gonna wear? She asked herself. It was 5 o'clock and Harley was in the same store she went in almost a week ago called Maggie's Couture. Harley walked around until she reached the dress section. Harley browsed the rows of dresses until she saw a blue dress that caught her eyes. It was like a gown and the neckline was wide and touched the top of the shoulders. It had long sleeves and it reached the ankles. Harley smiled and looked at the color mostly. It liked the exact same color of Bruce Wayne's eyes, she thought. Harley picked the dress up and went to the dressing room. When she was about to enter a dressing room, a door swung open and hit Harley in the face. Harley staggered back and held her nose. The woman walked out of the room and looky here. It was Miss Veronica. Veronica looked at Harley and saw her holding her nose. Oh. Did the door hit you? She asked. Harley nodded, trying not to seem angry. Veronica flipped her light brown hair and began to walk in front of the mirror. Oh, well, you should really watch where you're going. I mean, you do wear glasses, she said. Harley couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. Harley knew the woman could be a total snob, but the time she kidnapped her, the woman seemed rather nice. Aren't you dating Bruce Wayne? Harley asked, ignoring the burning sensation her nose was feeling. Veronica looked back at the raven-haired woman. Yes, well, we decided that it wasn't going that good, so we parted our weirdest ways. Well, I did, she said with a hand on her chest. Harley raised an eyebrow. So, what are you doing buying an expensive dress like that? Going to a party? Harley said, wanting to change the subject. The rich woman nodded. Yes, I'm going to that little fundraiser Bruce is hosting at his house, Wayne Manor, she said. Harley was at a loss for words. So, you dumped the guy, and you're gonna go to his party at his own house? Harley asked in disbelief. Veronica smirked. Why, yes. Harley nodded. Geez, how could Bruce put up with this woman, she wondered. Harley didn't bother to try on the dress, so instead she went to the cashier and paid for the dress and left. Suck it in, Ivy hissed as she tried to zip up the blue gown on Harley. I'm trying red. Geez, calm down. Harley fought back. Ivy finally got the zipper to come up. She looked at her fingers and saw they looked red. I hate zippers. Especially on dresses. I cannot believe you got a size smaller than you usually are. Poison Ivy said, rubbing her fingers. Harley sighed and fixed her curled hair. Well, at least it fits, thank God. What luck, she said. Harley walked towards the door and put on her coat. Here. Harley turned to have her Batwoman costume thrown at her face. Harley looked at Ivy. Just in case, Ivy said. Harley nodded and stuffed the costume into her medium-sized bag. See ya later, Ivy. Harley got out of the cab and closed the door. She looked around and saw many people coming out of their limos. She walked up the stairs and walked inside. Harley saw the place buzzing with laughter and chatter. There were delightful treats and appetizers on tables and many waiters walking around with trays. Can I get your coat, madam? Harley turned to see a middle-aged butler. Harley smiled. Thank you very much, mister, the man smiled. Alfred, mum, he said, taking her coat and bag. Harley smiled and walked around. She stopped in front of a table that had a donation box to help children without parents. Harley reached into her sleeve that she kept $50 just in case. She put all her money in that one box. Harley crossed her arms and had her right hand under her chin. That was very generous of you, Harley. Harley spun around to see Bruce Wayne in a tuxedo and all smiling down at her. Harley smiled. Hello, Mr. Dash. She saw his eyes narrow and she quickly laughed and corrected her. Bruce. How are you? She asked. He smiled brightly. I'm doing well, how about you? He asked. Harley nodded. I'm doing the same actually. I love the party, it's amazing. Bruce nodded. Thank you. I would like to say that you look quite beautiful, he complimented. Harley smiled and blushed a bit. Thank you. And you look handsome, she said. Bruce laughed. Thank you very much. If you don't mind me asking, why did you donate all your money to this particular charity? He asked. Harley looked at the donation box again. Well, it's not easy growing up without parents, and even though those kids don't have parents, they should have role models who are like parents who will take care of them. She said. Bruce grabbed Harley's hand and held it. She looked up at him. Don't worry, we both know what that's like, they'll have someone, he reassured. Harley smiled. You're always optimistic, aren't you, Bruce? She asked with an eyebrow cocked. Bruce laughed. Harley smiled widely, she really liked it when he laughed. It wasn't like the Joker's mad and crazy laugh. No. It was friendly and reassuring. I guess I always see the brighter side of things most of the time, he said. The music group began to play the song Because You Loved Me by Celine Dion. It sounded so beautiful with the instruments. Harley smiled. I love this song. She said. Bruce held her hand tightly. Would you like to dance? He asked. Harley couldn't help but keep the smile on her face. Yes, I would like that. She said. Bruce led her to the middle of the dance floor. He spun her around once and held her tightly into him. He held her waist and his other hand holding hers. Harley rested her hand on his shoulder. She noticed people were smiling and looking at her and Bruce. People are looking, she said. Just ignore them. Bruce said. Harley nodded and just danced with her boss. No. Bruce. He wasn't her boss tonight. She rested her head on his shoulder and closed her eyes. Is this supposed to be happening? Am I supposed to be doing this? She asked herself and thought. But it feels so right to be here. Bruce spun Harley around again slowly and she couldn't help but grin. He laughed and held her closely again. And as the sing began to end, he tipped her down slowly and held her protectively so she wouldn't fall. Harley and Bruce's eyes met and held on for more than a few seconds. When they heard applause, Bruce lifted Harley up again and kissed her hand like a gentleman would. Well, he was a gentleman. Harley smiled. "Thank you for the dance, Harley." "I enjoyed it," he said. Harley nodded. "I did as well," she said. The two didn't notice, but they came closer and closer to each other. But before they could get any closer, they were interrupted. "Why, hello Bruce dear," a voice said. The two dancers looked and saw Veronica. Harley backed away coughing a bit. "Hello Veronica," Bruce said without a smile on his face anymore. "So, you left me for this filthy lowlife?" "A secretary," Veronica scolded. Harley's eyes darted to the woman in front of her and she began enraged. "Excuse me," she asked. Veronica turned to Harley and raised an eyebrow. "What? Did I stutter?" "That's what you are, right?" Veronica teased. "No, I am not. At least I'm not a snob like you. I don't know why you act like that, but your personality is disgusting and I suggest if you don't want to be alone for the rest of your life that you change yourself, you rich bitch." Harley stormed off to the balcony. Harley could hear Veronica screeching at Bruce at what Harley just said to her. She felt terrible for leaving him there to be yelled at by Veronica. Harley closed the balcony doors and let out a deep breath. She walked over and looked out and saw the city below. The sight was enormously breathtaking. One part was the ocean while the other was the city of Gotham that was lit with lights all around. Harley took a deep breath of fresh air. This life was what she could get used to. Being a criminal and tagging along with the Joker wasn't all roses and chocolates, no. They had to hide in filthy places that were filled with muck and all sorts of gunk. Harley absolutely despised it. The Joker was a terrible leader who didn't care about his loyal followers. And I actually loved him? Love? Harley could hear the balcony doors open and didn't bother to turn to see who it was. She didn't care really. The person came next to her, looking out over the city like Harley was doing. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Bruce asked. "It's quite a view," she responded. Harley turned to face Bruce. "Bruce, I'm so sorry for my outburst. It's just, that woman dash, it's alright Harley." "I understand," Bruce said smiling at Harley. "That's why I ended things with her. She was too much." Harley looked up at him with a confused face. "You ended things?" "She told me that she ended things with you," Harley said. What a liar that woman was. Harley thought fiercely. Bruce shrugged. "It's alright, that's how Veronica is. She always wants to be right and be the one to take action of things," Bruce said. Harley examined the man next to her. "How can you be so nice? I mean, you're always so sweet and generous," Harley asked in curiosity. She couldn't believe how much of an angel this man was. With all the things he's been through in his life, he turned out amazing. "It just comes naturally. I'm not that mean. I want good for everyone in the world," he said. Just then, an extremely loud gunshot was heard and they both heard people screaming and yelling. Following all this commotion was a hysterical and psychotic laughter that rang the eerie air. Bruce and Harley looked at each other. The Joker, Harley looked back at Bruce and coughed weakly. If you could excuse me. I'm going to hide somewhere. You know, don't want him to find me," Harley said, running inside to the main room. She saw the Joker and his goons messing with some of the people. She hid between the crowds and made her way to the large coat room where she spotted her bag. Harley shut the door and locked it, making sure no one could get in there. She reached inside her bag and took out her costume and weapons. "About time I faced you, clown. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Ha ha ha. I assure you that tonight, if you're all good and cooperate, you will all get a great show. But if you don't behave, well, let's just say the show will end very badly and there will be many frowns on your faces. Or probably some fireworks going off. He, the Joker said, twirling the gun in his hand. The goons all went around and took the people's money, jewelry, and anything they deemed was expensive and worth some value. You won't get away with this. Batman will come. And maybe even that new superhero too, a scared man said, trying his best to seem brave for everyone else. Joker grinned madly like the madman he was. Oh, we've got a brave soul here. Willing to stand up to the Prince of Crime, the Joker said, walking towards the man. The Joker teased the poor man by pointing the gun at him and circling around him. Oh, I'm always up for a fight with old Batsy. He. Why, there would be no fun without him. It's all a fun joke, that's all. He said, laughing. Boss, we're ready, a goon with clown makeup on said. The Joker turned to the goon and shot at him. Everyone jumped thinking the madman killed the man, but the bullet missed the goon by an inch or two. The Joker went over and grabbed the man by his shirt, shaking the frightened goon. I will tell you when I am ready. You got that, he yelled. The goon nodded stupidly. Yeah. It's a sure thing, boss. Anything you say, the Joker released the goon and smiled towards the crowd of scared people. Well, it's been a pleasure, people of Gotham, but I'm afraid I must depart from the party, he announced. I don't think so, a voice said. The Joker turned around just in time to get kicked in the chest area with a pair of black heels. He crashed into a table that held many desserts on them. He growled, wiping the chocolate mousse off his face and clothes. Batwoman pulled out her batarang and threw it in the air. Stupid Batgirl, a goon said, grabbing her by her arms from behind. The batarang came back and hit the goon square in the face. Batwoman smirked and kicked the goon in the stomach, making him crash into a wall. It's Batwoman, she corrected him. Batwoman had no trouble knocking out and taking down the other goons, but she wondered something fiercely in her mind. Where the hell is Batman? Oh, Batlady, the Joker called. Batwoman turned around, and that was a big mistake as the Joker hit her in the face with a large metal plate. Batwoman stumbled back and fell on the ground, holding her forehead in excruciating pain. The Joker laughed as though it was fun, but of course, this was the Joker. He pulled her up in a headlock and put the gun to the side of her head. Some people in the crowd gasped and stared at the scene happening in front of them. Some wanted to help, but knew they couldn't. The Joker put his gun in his pocket and laughed again. He put his free hand to her eye mask, the one thing concealing her true identity. Batwoman tried to turn her face away, but the Joker had her in a strong chokehold. He. Now, let's see who our dear Dark Knight fancies so much, shall we, he said. God, I came so far. And now this is it. I'm gonna die either way. Great job, Harley's Batwoman thought. Just then, the grip that held her loosened and Batwoman could breathe again. She fell on her knees and began to breathe slowly, trying to regain her breath. She had a hand around her throat and the other on the floor, trying to keep her balance. Batwoman looked to her left and saw a fight between the Clown Prince and the Dark Knight. And of course, her Dark Knight was winning. Batwoman couldn't get up, her head was killing her and it was difficult to breathe. She finally looked up to hear a crash and laughing. The window was shattered and Batman just stood in front of the broken window with his fist clenched tightly. The Joker got away. Applause and cheer interrupted the silence that overtook the place for quite a while. Batwoman looked down and was beginning to regain her breathing back properly. Are you all right? A deep voice asked. Batwoman looked up and saw Batman in front of her with his gloved hand reached out to help her. Even though in pain, Batwoman smiled and took his hand. Batman lifted her up and looked down at her with concern, even though his face didn't show it. I was beginning to think I was a goner when you didn't show up, she said. But I did, he said. Batwoman put her hand back on her forehead and was overtaken with pain again. She was about to fall back and faint, but a pair of strong, protective hands grabbed her in time. Are you sure you're all right? Batman asked, helping her stand up again. Batwoman's eyes widened at his touch and she quickly took out her grappling hook and smiled. Hee hee, not on a first date, my dear Dark Knight, she said, and then took off into the night sky. Batman stood there watching as Batwoman flew through the night sky, and he smirked a little. Harley hissed when the ice pack touched her head. Ow, 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 red. That hurts, she said in pain. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not the one who fought Bozo and got hit with a large plate, Ivy said, raising an eyebrow. Harley glared at her friend. No, but you did give me my Boatwoman costume just in case, Harley said in a mocking tone. Ivy rolled her eyes and sat down next to Harley on the couch. Harley sighed. Didn't think being a superhero could be this painful, Ivy chuckled. But it was awesome seeing Batman take care of the Joker. I mean, he went wham. And bam. Pow. Harley said, making hand movements. Even though she was changing, she couldn't help but keep some of Harley Quinn inside herself. And he came over and helped me up and asked if I was okay, and it felt good. It felt like he actually cared for me. And his touch was so comforting and soft. Harley said, going into the memory. Poison Ivy looked at her friend. Harley. Ivy said, snapping her fingers. Harley came out of the memory and turned back to her friend. Oh, sorry, Ivy. Harley said, blushing a bit. Ivy smirked. Are you sure you're not falling for the Batman? Ivy asked. Harley shook her head. No, trust me, Red, I'm not falling in love with him. I'm just helping him, Harley said. Ivy laughed. She mumbled. Harley smiled widely. Let's have some fun tomorrow, she said. Ivy was surprised at her friend's sudden mood change. Do what? Ivy asked. Have fun, go shopping, go to the spa. You do look kinda pale, Red, and you need to get out more, Harley said, looking at her friend's skin. Ivy sighed. You're not going to stop begging until I say yes, right? She asked with a hand under her chin. Harley nodded her head. It'll be fun. Just watch, Ivy sighed again and nodded. Harley laughed and accidentally fell off the couch due to all the excitement. Ow. Harley moaned. Ivy just rolled her eyes at her friend's attitude. Harley was in her pajamas holding the house phone to her ear. She was waiting for someone to answer her call to Wayne Enterprises. Today, Harley was going to play hooky from her job. Hello, Wayne Enterprises, Scarletti answering, a high-pitched voice answered. Hello, Scarletti, this is Harleen Quinzel calling. I just called to say that I am not going to be able to come to work today. I'm not feeling very well, and I think that resting for a day will help the situation, Harley said, coughing a fake cough. All right, Harleen. I will tell Mr. Wayne you will be absent. Get well soon. Harley smiled. Thank you so much. Good day. Harley finished and put the phone back on the hook. Harley checked the digital clock on the cable box and smiled. It's 6:35, time to wake Ivy. Harley skipped to Ivy's room and opened the door. She pushed a long vine from her face. Even Poison Ivy decorated her room with plants. Ridiculous. Red. Wake up. Come on. Harley shook her friend's shoulder. Ivy's eyes shot open and she sat up in her bed. Harley, it's 6-something in the morning. I'm going back to bed, Ivy yelled, covering her head with the green sheets that decorated her bed. Harley went to the front of her best friend's bed and grabbed the covers. Harley ripped the covers off of the bed and put her hands on her hips. Even plants need the sun. Get up and get dressed, Red, Harley said, walking back to her room. Poison Ivy grumbled and got out of her bed. Her red hair disheveled and messy. Yeah, Harl, you can stay with me as long as you want. Great job, Pamela, great idea. Mr. Wayne, your secretary isn't coming in today. She's not feeling very well, Scarletti said to the intercom. Bruce frowned a bit. Oh, all right, thank you, Scarletti, he said, ending the call. Bruce put his hand to his chin. He picked up the phone and made a quick call. When his call ended, there was a knock at the door. Come in, Bruce said. The door opened to reveal Scarletti. "Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Wayne, but your temporary secretary is here." Bruce nodded and started to organize his paperwork. "Thank you, Scarletti, send her in," he responded. The office door closed and Bruce could feel the presence of another person. "Hello, Bruce." Bruce Wayne froze in his spot. "That sounds like..." His head shot up and a blonde-haired woman with green eyes greeted him. "Selena." What are you doing here?" he asked unsurely. She stepped forward. "Well, I came because your personal secretary isn't here, and I was also thinking for applying for a job," Selena said in her silky voice. "Well, we don't really have any openings, so I guess you're only going to work here for today," Bruce said, putting his hands in his pockets. Selena smiled and nodded her head. "All right. So, I better get to work," she said, walking out and closing the door. Bruce fell into his leather chair and stared at the door. What's Selena doing here? Why would she come and work here? These thoughts kept Bruce thinking. Sure, he had a relationship with Selena, but had is the main word. They were over. It didn't last too long for them. Does she still have feelings for me? He thought to himself. His blue eyes flickered towards the clock and he saw he was going to be late for his first meeting. He gathered his things and went on his way, not even looking at Selena as he passed the desk. Isn't this the life, Red? Harley asked her friend as they sat at a table and relaxed outside of a fancy restaurant. They had spent the last couple of hours going around town and shopped some. You're right, Harles, this is relaxing, Ivy said with sunglasses on her face while taking a sip of her fruity drink. Harley smiled. It had been such a long time since Harley relaxed like this. With the entire crime-doing and abusive Joker, she was never able to do these things. Harley wondered to herself why she put up with his abusive behavior for so long. I was in love, she thought to herself. That was not love, that was hate and abuse, a voice in her head argued. I was naive, she thought again. That you were, the voice said in a sarcastic tone. Shut up. Harley said, not realizing she spoke. What? Poison Ivy asked. Harley whipped her head to her friend and blushed slightly. Sorry, never mind. Harley watched from across the street as a father was giving his little daughter a piggyback ride. Harley smiled at the scene, but the smile was quickly replaced by a frown. So where else do you want to go? Harley asked her friend. Ivy shrugged her shoulders. I don't really know, and I don't really care actually. I already got the things I want. Harley rolled her eyes. Yeah, garden tools and seeds are great shopping items. Ivy just took another sip of her drink. So, let's talk about Mr. Billionaire, Ivy said. Harley turned her attention to her friend once more. Why? This day is supposed to be about us having fun girl time. Harley complained, even though she really didn't want to talk about Bruce. Ivy smirked. Exactly, we're girls, actually women, and we're going to spend this time talking. Now spill, what happened at the fundraiser? Harley sighed knowing she was defeated. Well, we talked and smiled and danced and that's it. Harley said, smiling until she saw the sneer look on Ivy's face. Okay. Harley exclaimed, putting her hands up in defense. I'll really tell as long as you don't trap me in one of your weeds again. Harley explained the whole talk and dance she had with Bruce, and even about the snobby Veronica. I wish I was there, I would have kicked her ass myself. Ivy said. Harley shrugged her shoulders. It's whatever. Harley said, getting her accent back in the last word. It was starting to get dark outside, so the two best friends decided to head home. When they got through the front gate, Ivy gasped lightly. She dropped her bags and was bending down in front of the door. Harley locked the gate and went over to where her friend was. She saw a very large bouquet of roses, lilies, tulips, and sunflowers in many different colors. Someone send you some flowers, Red? Harley asked, picking up Ivy's bags. No, Harles, these beautiful babies are yours, Ivy said, stroking the petals on the flowers. Harley stopped dead in her tracks. Who are they from? She asked in a quiet voice. Poison Ivy looked at her friend with a blank look. "Come on, let's get inside quickly," Ivy said, grabbing the flowers and unlocking the door. As soon as they were inside, Harley bolted up all the locks on the door as Ivy set the flowers on the table. "You don't think it's Joker who sent them, do you?" Harley asked, coming next to her friend. "Well, did you ever give him my address?" Ivy asked her friend with a cocked eyebrow. Harley began to ponder her memories. She shook her head. "No, I mean, the last place he saw you live was at that old toxic dump. Other than that, I don't think so," Harley said. Harley's eyes saw a vanilla-colored card that was tapped to the side. She took the card out of all the bundles of tape and opened it. As she was reading, Ivy saw her friend's expression change from frightened to a dreamy smile. "Oh God, Harles! Don't get tricked by the clown again. He's fooling you," she shouted angrily. "It's not the jokester Ivy," Harley said. Poison Ivy changed her attitude. "Then who in the hell is IT from?" Ivy snatched the card from her friend and began to read it aloud for herself. "Dear Harleen, I hope you get well soon. Heard you were out today, so I decided that these flowers should help cheer you up. Love, Bruce Wayne." Ivy looked at her friend with a sly smirk. "Harley." Harley rolled her eyes. "I'm not doing that for the last frickin' time. He's my boss. People will talk," Harley said, getting out of her daydream and into reality. "And anyway, why would he choose me to like? With all the things I did to him in the past?" Harley didn't wait for her friend to answer. Instead, she took her bags and flowers into her room and shut the door. Ivy turned back to the flowers and smelled them. The flowers smelled so fresh and pleasant. "Please. I'm sorry, Puddin', really. Honestly." Harley just received a backhand to the face as a response. Harley fell backwards, knocking over gag items in the process. The pain to her cheek was stinging, but she tried not to show it. She should be used to it by now anyways. Harley looked up at the man she loved with pleading, fearful eyes. "Shut up. It's your fault we lost the money and almost got caught by the Batbrain," Joker yelled, walking closer to her. He grabbed her Harlequin hat off her head and threw it to the side. He then grabbed a handful of her blonde-dyed hair and lifted her up off the ground. Harley began to struggle, her legs weak and her hands trying to get her hair back. "Ow. Please, Mr. J. I'm sorry. Forgive me, please." Harley was caught off by a blow to her nose. She was then thrown into the wall. Harley's body slid down the wall and she became limp like a rag doll on the wooded floor. "Pathetic," the Joker said, walking into another room. Harley opened her good eye halfway and saw the goons look at her with a hint of sadness for her. They then followed their boss, closing the door. Harley felt waves of different emotions go through her. Anger, sadness, frustration, and embarrassment were only a couple of those feelings. A noise was heard from the door and Harley glanced up to see the doorknob turning slowly like how it would in a horror movie. The door opened slowly to reveal the Joker with a pistol in his hand. He had a mad grin on his face and walked slowly towards the beaten-up woman. Harley tried to move, but couldn't due to the pain coursing through her body from her head to her feet. The Joker aimed the gun at her and chuckled. "Sorry, Harles, you were a good kid, I'll give you that, but I just can't have people like you weighing me down. Nighty-night, my little Harlequin." A loud gunshot rang the air and the terrible, shrill scream of a woman was added to the loud crack. Harley shot up quickly in her bed, panting and sweating. Her pillow was soaked and so was most of her pajamas. Harley looked around the room as if she was searching for someone. She sighed and rubbed her head, running a hand through her black hair. Just a dream. More like a nightmare, she thought to herself. Harley looked over at her digital clock. 5:52 in the morning. Great, she said sarcastically. Harley got out of her bed and took out a black suit with a pair of black sensible wedges to go along. She then went into the bathroom and rested her hands on the sink with her head hung down. She closed her eyes and tried her hardest not to cry, but the tears streamed down her porcelain, heart-shaped face. Harley looked up at her reflection and wiped the tears away. "Get it together, Harleen," she said, using her full name. "It was just a dream, he can't hurt you anymore." Harley began to run the water in the tub and sat on the edge of it. "Sorry, I burned your bacon arls. I don't really eat meat. You should try and eat some vegetables most of the time, they're delicious," Ivy said, putting the plate down in front of Harley. Harley squeezed her nose tightly, trying not to breathe in the horrible, burnt stench. "No offense, Red, but don't try to convert me to being a plant head like you," Harley said, picking up her bag and heading towards the door. She grabbed her coat and turned back to her friend. "You didn't eat it," Ivy said with an irritated voice and stoic expression on her face. Harley smiled. "I'll grab something on the way." "Bye, Red," she said, heading out the door. "Taxi! Taxi!" Harley yelled as another cab drove right past her. "Mother F," she cursed under her breath. "I seriously need to save up and buy a car of my own," she told herself and thought. "Guess I'll walk." Harley walked for a good 5 minutes when she heard a car horn. Figuring it wasn't for her, she continued walking. The car horn blared very loudly a couple of more times. Frustrated, Harley turned around to see a long, black limo. It pulled up next to her and the window rolled down. Harley was surprised to see a very familiar face smiling at her. "Hello, Harley," Bruce Wayne said, smiling charmingly. "Hello, Mr. Wayne, what brings you here on this street corner?" she asked, smiling at her response. "Well, I was just driving and I noticed you walking in this cold weather. I was wondering if you would like a drive to work." Harley's mouth was slightly agape at Bruce's suggestion. Harley smiled and shook her head. "Oh, no, it's just a block or two away from here." Bruce cocked an eyebrow. "It's 10 more blocks from here, probably more." Harley knew she was defeated in this battle. "Oh," was all she said. "Come on," he said, opening the car door. Harley climbed inside the limo and shut the door. The limo was very extravagant. It has soft cotton seats and there was a little cooler there too that probably held all types of drinks. "You know, you didn't really have to do this," she said, smiling up at him. He smiled warmly at the woman next to him. It was definitely no bother at all. Anytime, he then reached into his black briefcase and pulled out a couple of papers that were stapled together. He then handed them to Harley, who took them acceptingly. She scanned over the documents and turned her gaze back to her boss. "These papers say that you're going to have a big meeting, but it's international." "It's in Spain," she said, confused. Bruce nodded. "Yes, it's going to be next week. And I need you to come along since you are my personal secretary," he said. Harley went wide-eyed for a moment. I am sorry, Mr. Wayne, but I can't. I don't have enough money and I'm living with a friend who I'm helping also," Harley said. Harley couldn't imagine her and Bruce Wayne in Spain together. "No need to worry, I'll pay for you," he said, smiling. Harley couldn't believe this man. Why was he being so nice to her? It's not like she deserved it. But Harley began again. "All right, I'll go. I mean, it is my job anyway." Bruce smiled widely. "Perfect," he said as they finally reached Wayne Enterprises. "So, who filled me in yesterday?" Harley asked as they walked inside the elevator. "Selena Kyle," Bruce said, looking straight ahead. Harley's head jerked up to see his. "Selena Kyle? I didn't know she did secretary jobs." Harley said in disbelief that Selena would take a secretary job, or even any job at that. Selena was that kind of carefree person who didn't want to be tied down by anything. She was, of course, like a cat. Wanting freedom and wanting what she wanted. And she was definitely sly. "I didn't know either until she came into my office," Bruce said, jogging Harley out of her thoughts. Was all Harley said. "Hey, I just remembered something. At the charity event, where did you go?" Bruce asked. "Oh shit. Oh crap." Harley quickly thought of something. "Well, when the Joker came, I actually found a way out. Through a window," Harley said, pulling out lies. Bruce laughed. "You climbed out a window?" Harley laughed along with him. Yeah, I know. It was difficult too, she said. You were really afraid, weren't you? Bruce asked. Harley could tell he was sad for her by the way his voice was. To be honest, just a little bit. But as time goes by, I'm becoming independent and becoming stronger. Much stronger. Bruce smiled down at her. I'm proud of you, Harley. Harley could feel her heart skip a beat when he said that. She smiled to herself and looked away. They spent the remainder of the time in silence. Harley watched the numbers light up and fade until it reached the right floor. They both walked to their destinations and started to work. Selena? A secretary? Ha! Ivy laughed sitting on the couch. Harley was practicing throwing her batarangs at a wooded dummy she found in Ivy's closet. How weird. I'm serious, Red. Mr. Wayne told me. Even he was surprised to see her. Ivy gave Harley a look. Harley, you better be careful and make sure she doesn't steal your man, Ivy warned, shaking her finger. Harley scoffed. Aw, please. What man? I don't have a man. Harley argued, throwing a batarang directly on the forehead of the dummy. You know Catwoman, she sees something she likes, she'll go after it until it's in her grasp. Ivy's comment made Harley throw a batarang with quick speed to the dummy's head, which resulted in the head falling apart in half. Poison Ivy's green eyes stared at the disassembled head parts on the floor and then met up to meet Harley. Did I strike a nerve? She asked with a smirk. Harley sighed. No, she said. But in her mind, Harley was imagining Selena all over Bruce Wayne, rubbing his shoulders and whispering seductive things in his ears. She imagined her kissing him. Harley gasped lightly. You don't think they've done it? She asked Ivy, who was looking at her nails with a bored look. What? Have sex? Probably. I mean, he is a playboy after all. A handsome one at that. Harley sighed while she picked up her batarangs and the broken dummy's headpieces. But, he's so sweet. It's hard to believe he's a playboy and not in a relationship. I mean, I first thought he was trying something when he took me out to coffee, but he's a sweet soul who just wants good in the world. Ivy smiled warmly. You sure you won't give him a chance? You are going to Spain with him next week, something could happen, Ivy suggested. Harley put the training dummy back in the closet. No, it wouldn't be right, Red. The boss and his secretary. And besides, I want to wait until after I'm married. If I ever get married, that is. Ivy's smile faded. Alright, Harles, your choice. So you won't mind if I get a go at him? She asked with a smirk on her lips. Harley glared at her friend. Ho, I'm loafing my ass off, Ivy shrugged. At least I asked, she replied as Harley went to her room. Harley was off to Spain in 2 days and needed to pack her things. She was shuffling through clothes in her drawers and closet at a fast pace. Ivy watched in amusement, leaning on the doorframe while sipping a green drink. Probably a health shake or smoothie of some kind. She watched her best friend with an amused face. I'm guessing you're excited about this, huh, Harles? Ivy asked. Harley looked up at her friend and smiled. Well, I'm just going there because I'm his personal secretary and it's my job to help him. Besides, I've never been to Spain before, she exclaimed with a grin on her face. Harley zipped her suitcase close and put her hands on her hips with a satisfied smile. There. Oh. I forgot the toiletries, she said, racing towards the bathroom, almost knocking Ivy over. Hey. Watch it, I've got a glass in my hand, Ivy complained, watching her friend looking for the items she needed. Harley came out of the bathroom and into her room again. I'll be back, gotta go out and buy some stuff, Harley said, grabbing her purse and coat. Ivy waved a small goodbye, watching Harley leave through the front door. She sighed and went to water her plants again. Harley was in the pharmacy store picking the items like toothpaste, a toothbrush, soap, lotion, hair lotion, clips, some hair accessories, and more. Just when Harley was about to enter an aisle, there was a crash heard in the front. She turned to see that 2 robbers just broke into the pharmacy with guns in hand. Everybody freeze. This is a stick-up. On the floor now, one of the robbers said. Harley mentally cursed herself for not having her costume with her. She dropped her things and cooperated with the robbers like everyone else was doing. People watched as they emptied the cash registers and stuffed the money in a large duffel bag. Harley saw one of the other robbers going to the snack section and stuffing chips in the bag. She rolled her eyes and wanted to laugh, but knew she couldn't. Off to the far left, Harley could see a woman flat on the ground trying to move slowly and get to a cell phone that was on the floor. Luck wasn't on their side because the robber stopped stuffing food in his bag and shot his gun in the air. People screamed at the loud noise and covered their ears. He made his way over to the woman as people watched in horror as he pulled her up by her hair and screamed in her face. "What are you trying to do, bitch? Call the cops? You can try, but by the time they get here you'll be dead," he said, pointing his gun at her. When the woman began to sob, that's when Harley had enough. "Stop," she yelled, standing up. Everyone watched her and a silence took over the place. The man dropped the woman on the floor and stormed over to Harley and grabbed her by her shoulder with the gun pointing at her. "Shouldn't have done that, beautiful," he said, breathing hard in Harley's face. She could smell the alcohol on his breath and tried her hardest not to show her disgust. Just then, a black figure swooped in and knocked out the robber who was near the register. "Damn! The Batman," the robber cursed. "I knew he would come," Harley thought happily. When Batman faced the robber, he saw Harley Quinn there too. "Oh no," he thought. The robber grabbed Harley by her hair and put an arm around her neck with his other arm pointing a gun at her head. Harley felt the cold metal against her head, which brought up some uncomfortable memories. "Come one step closer and I'll shoot her," the robber threatened, cocking the gun. "Let her go. This is between you and me," Batman growled. The robber smiled menacingly and put his mouth on Harley's hair. Harley felt so disgusted and wanted to throw up. "Nah, maybe I'll take her home with me. You know, get to really know her," he said, laughing. That was it for Batman. In less than a second he pounced on the robber, punching him repeatedly in the face. Harley told the other people in the store to quickly clear out. When she got everyone out, she turned to see the two robbers tied up and a restless Batman. She walked up to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said. He turned around and nodded. "You're welcome, miss," he said. Harley looked into his eyes. They seemed so familiar. But where? In less than a few seconds, he was gone. Harley looked around and saw her basket. She picked it up and left a $100 bill on the counter where a stunned employee was standing. "Keep the change," she said, walking out the store. As she was walking, Harley was oblivious to the fact that the Dark Knight was watching her from afar with a small smile on his face. "She's definitely something else," Harley breathed out a deep breath and looked outside the airplane window. "Are you all right?" Bruce asked. Harley turned to her boss and faked a smile. "Yeah. Just fine." Bruce cocked his eyebrow. "Harley," he said. She sighed in defeat. I am kinda scared of flying." "Guess you can call it a fear of heights," she said. Bruce put his hand on Harley's and smiled. "Don't worry, you're safe around me," he said. Harley chuckled and smiled widely. "Folks, this your pilot speaking. We are about to take off, so please buckle your seatbelts and prepare for takeoff," the pilot announced over the speaker. The plane started to move forward on the runway and began to move fast now. Harley squeaked a bit and without realizing, she grabbed onto Bruce's arm tightly. Bruce smiled at the woman holding onto him. After a few minutes, Bruce tapped Harley with his finger. "Harley, we're in the air," he said. Harley's face was flushed when she realized what she did. She leaned up and looked out her window. She was amazed by how beautiful the sight was. They were above the clouds and there was nothing but blue sky. Harley smiled. "It's beautiful," she said. Bruce smiled. "Told you it would be okay," he said. Harley became bored and so she took out some paper and colored pencils. Harley looked over to see her boss fast asleep. She turned back to her paper and began designing different types of clothing. After a few minutes, she finished her sketch of a magenta-colored dress with sleeves that hung onto the top of shoulders. It was a long flowery-type dress that also had white gloves as an accessory. Harley looked out the window again and saw the sun setting. She began to think about how the trip to Spain would be. "I wonder if we'll go sightseeing. It would be nice." Harley smiled at her positive thoughts. "Plus, there's no villains to cause trouble. I don't know why I brought my Batwoman costume." Harley became bored and began to sing the song that played during her dance with Bruce. Harley finished the song after a minute. "That was very beautiful." Harley jumped at the voice. She saw that Bruce woke up. "How long have you been awake?" Harley asked nervously. "For a couple of minutes," he said, sitting up straight. "I didn't you sing? You have a gorgeous voice." Harley blushed a bit. "Oh, it was nothing. Harley responded back. Bruce's eyes drifted down to the dress design that Harley sketched. "Wow, that's an amazing sketch, Harley," he said. Harley looked down at her sketch and smiled widely. "Oh yeah, well, I've always had a thing for drawing clothes," she said. "Have you ever designed any outfits?" Bruce asked. "Oh, you have no idea," Harley said with a knowing smile. "I know I used to be a psychiatrist, but since I was little I loved to draw clothes, and one day I got some material and began to actually create them." Harley shared. Bruce responded with a smile. "Maybe if you keep it up you'll have your own fashion company in a few years." Harley shook her head. "Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, getting a job in the first place was a miracle. Especially with my past." This time Bruce held Harley's hand tightly in his, but Harley was becoming used to his touch. "Harley, you need to forget about the past and move on," he said. Harley just looked at him. "How can someone like me forget about their past? My past will forever haunt me, that I'll never forget about it. I try, I really do. But it's just so hard. With the Joker and the crimes, and my family. I was so broken, Bruce. How I made it this far is beyond me." Harley didn't realize that tears were flowing down her face until Bruce wiped them away with his thumb. "Listen, Harley, you made it this far because you decided you wanted to change. I know it may be hard to forget about the past and the Joker, but I know you can. I believe in you," he said. Harley was so touched by his words. This guy should be a speaker, she thought, wiping away her tears. The thoughts about her past made it difficult for Harley. Especially thinking about the Joker. All those slaps, hits, punches and kicks. One after another after another. And she took them. She accepted them from him. The man she thought loved her. That needed her. But the Joker did need her. He needed her for his plans and for her to take the fall and get arrested. And she did. Because she loved him. Did she really love him? Harley always pondered this thought. "Thank you," she said to Bruce, who smiled genuinely. They took a private car to the Hotel Exquisito. Harley had learned some Spanish in her school years, but not a lot. You could imagine her surprise when they got into the hotel and to the front desk. The man spoke in Spanish to Bruce. Harley's jaw almost dropped when Bruce began to speak fluent Spanish. The only thing she understood from him was when he said his name. The clerk took out 2 keycards and handed them to him. "Enjoy your stay, Mr. and Mrs. Wayne," he said. Harley couldn't help but smile a bit and laugh nervously. "Yo no soy su esposa," Harley told the clerk in Spanish. The clerk put a hand to his mouth. "So sorry," he said in a strong accent. Bruce laughed along with Harley until they got into the elevator. "I didn't know you could speak Spanish," Harley said as Bruce handed her room key to her. He chuckled. "Well, I've been tutored since I was young in many things. Especially languages," he said. "What about you?" "I heard you speak Spanish to him," Bruce retorted. Harley rolled her eyes playfully. "That was hardly any Spanish. That was probably the only thing I know in Spanish, actually," she said. When they got to the 14th floor, Harley was just amazed by the size of the black wooded doors in the hall. Bruce led her to her room, which was adjoined with his. They said their goodbyes and went inside their rooms. Harley was startled by the size of the room. There was a huge TV, a scenery view of the poolside, the bed was huge and cozy, and the bathroom was so big it held a bathtub and shower separate from each other. Harley threw her suitcase down and jumped on her bed, feeling how soft the pillows were. She sighed and looked over at the clock. "It's 2:36, I think I'm gonna take a dip in the pool." Harley got up and began to unzip her suitcase. She took out a leaf green one-piece bathing suit, courtesy of Ivy, and changed. Harley walked by along the poolside and put her raven black hair up in a ponytail. She noticed that no one was in the pool or at the poolside cafe where there was only a bartender woman. Harley looked into the blue water and dived. She began to swim under the water until she got to the other end of the pool. The water felt so refreshing on her smooth skin. Harley took a deep breath of the fresh air as she came above the water. She began to wonder why people wouldn't love to come for a swim in this hot Spain weather. Harley then went back under the water and swam back to the front side of the pool. When she came up, she noticed two naked feet in front of her. She looked up to meet the blue eyes of her boss, Bruce Wayne. Harley stared at his muscles and his beautiful toned body. She had never seen him shirtless, he looked perfectly sculpted. He had a smile on his face and a towel flung over his shoulder. "I guess you found me," Harley said, getting out of the water with the help of Bruce, of course. He laughed. "I actually thought you were resting in your room. So, I thought I would come and take a cool dip." Harley pulled back her wet, damp hair from her shoulder and smiled. "Would you like to swim with me?" Harley asked. She almost mentally cursed herself for asking this, when he said yes. He then dived into the pool like how a professional swimmer would do. He came back to the surface, his hair clinging to his face and falling over his eyes. Harley laughed and jumped in. "Bet I can beat you to the other side," Bruce challenged. Harley smirked. "Bring it on," she dared. When they did so, Harley was the winner of the challenge. "You're good, Harley," Bruce said, coming up to the surface. Harley laughed. "Thanks, it was probably all those gymnastic classes I took," she replied. "Would you like to get something to drink at the cafe?" he asked her. Harley looked over at the cafe. It was still deserted except for the woman working there. Harley nodded and got out the pool along with Bruce. They sat down at the table and ordered their drinks. Well, Bruce ordered for them. Harley sipped her chocolate milkshake. "So, when is the meeting?" she asked. "Tomorrow at 10, he responded. Harley nodded and wanted to ask Bruce something that has been on her mind for quite some time. "Say, Bruce," he looked her way with a smile. "Have you heard of that new superhero? Batwoman?" Bruce nodded. "Yes, I have," he said. "Well, what do you think of her?" Harley asked, wanting to know if the billionaire thought of Batwoman as a good thing to Gotham. "Well, she is definitely athletic and is a very skilled fighter. I think she may be a good thing for Batman. You know, a good accomplice." Harley leaned forward, resting her arms on the table. "You know, people keep saying that Batman and her are together. What do you think?" Bruce leaned forward also. "Why? Are you jealous?" he teased. Harley was baffled by his statement and sat back again with her mouth open. "Jealous? Of what?" she asked. "Well, you know what they say, all the women love Batman." Bruce responded to her question with a smirk. "I'm not in love with Batman. I mean, yeah, we fought and all, but I don't love him," she said. "Then who do you love?" Bruce asked, leaning back in his seat. Harley was surprised by his question, but decided to answer him anyway. I don't have a love. I mean, I had one boyfriend before the Joker while I was in school, but that was just a silly flirt," she said. Bruce looked into her eyes, he could sense pain. "What about the Joker?" he asked, even though he really didn't want to. Harley looked at him with seriousness. "That was definitely not love. At first I thought it was, but I was so mistaken. Bruises and cuts don't come from love, they come from hate and disgust. Her answer was so deep that Bruce felt a pang in his heart. He wanted to help this woman find her way, protect her, and care for her. And maybe, just maybe, have a life with her. But he wasn't going to let her know that, at least, not now. "Sorry for bringing that up again," he said. Harley smiled widely, which surprised him. "No, it's fine. Actually, it's great. It's great that I'm getting this all out," she said. "It's like you're my psychiatrist now," she laughed. Bruce smiled and laughed along with her. They finished their drinks and headed back upstairs to their rooms. Harley landed on her bed, now in her pajamas and feeling exhausted for some reason. She decided to call Ivy tomorrow after the meeting, but for now, she was going to have a peaceful, Joker-less dream. Harley reached over and shut off her lamplight. Harley smiled as she lay on her soft, white pillow. "What a guy." "So you went swimming with him?" Ivy asked through the phone. Harley was putting on her black pencil skirt while talking to Ivy through her hotel room phone. "Yeah, but he surprised me. I just went down for a swim and a minute later there he was," Harley explained. "Harley. He knew you went down there. He wanted to meet you there. He does like you," Ivy said. Harley rolled her eyes. She put on a black undershirt. "Did you know I asked him his opinion on Batwoman?" Ivy gasped through the phone. "Details?" she asked. Harley smiled. "Well, he thinks that she's a good addition to Gotham City. Even for Batman." Harley put on a red tie that she thought would look quite cute if she wore it under her black suit jacket. "Oh, that's very good. Very good indeed. What else did you guys talk about?" Ivy asked. "Well, he asked me if I loved anyone at the moment," Harley said quietly. Harley heard a slight thump at the other end of the line and froze as she was putting on her suit jacket. "Red? You there?" she asked. "He asked you what?" Harley flinched. "Why the hell would he ask you that?" Harley took the phone an inch away from her ear. "I don't know. Curiosity?" Harley said unsurely. "Well, curiosity definitely killed the cat, Harles. He probably wanted to know if you found another guy. He wants to know if you're free," Ivy said. Harley began to think as she curled her side bang. Was Mr. Wayne taking a great interest in her? He did ask her that particular question. "Ivy, if he does like me, why me? With my past and with all that I've done. Why would anyone fall for me?" Ivy sighed. "Harleen Quinzel, you are beautiful, intelligent, and a one-of-a-kind woman. Your looks alone will attract anyone, but your personality is one in a million. I know I've been pushing you into going out with him, but if he's a good man who treats you well, I say you go for it." Harley smiled genuinely. That was one of the most kindest things anyone could say to her. "Thanks, Red, I'll call you later," Harley said. "All right. Bye, Harles." Harley put the phone back on the hook and walked to the mirror. She actually got this outfit design from Bruce himself. Harley had seen him within his black suit with his red tie and decided to try it herself. She put her hair back in one and put her shoes on. Just then, her phone rang. Harley went over and answered it. "Hello," Harley said. "Hello, Harley, I'll be out in a minute or two," Bruce's voice said through the phone. "All right, I'll be right out." Harley hung up the phone and quickly spread on her perfume. She grabbed her briefcase and left the room, putting on her glasses. She stood next to Bruce's room waiting for him to come out. Harley began to whistle and stopped a minute later when she heard his door open. She turned to see Bruce come out dressed in his black suit with his red tie. "Surprise, surprise." Bruce smiled as he looked at Harley's outfit. "That looks nice on you, Harley." "Looks exactly like my suit but more feminine," he complimented. Harley smiled. "Well, I got the idea from you," she said in her sweet voice. They were both guided to the meeting room where the meeting would take place. Harley was told that she could join her boss during the meeting. She sat next to Bruce in a black leather chair and saw some graphs and charts. During the meeting, Harley had lost count at what they were talking about. She was never really good at math and science, but mostly math. She couldn't help but be amazed by her boss. She knew he's been doing this for years, but it was so astonishing at how well he could calculate. Harley was beginning to get a headache from all this math. When the meeting was over, Bruce was pulled to the side by some other men at the meeting to talk privately. Harley began to gather his paperwork when a man with blondish brown hair came over to her with a sly smile on his face. "Hola, señorita," he said. Harley didn't like this guy, but didn't show it either. "Hello," she said. The man stood up straight and put his hands in his pocket. "My name is Ed. And might I say, you look like a beauty, señorita," he said in a light Spain accent. Harley crossed her arms. "Why, thank you, but I'm not really interested in seeing anyone now," she said. When she was about to pick up a piece of paper, the man's hand was placed on top of Harley's. Harley looked up at the man with an annoyed look. "Hey, listen, why don't I take you out for a bit? Just you and I." "What do you say?" he asked again. Harley tried to get her hand away from him, but he was gripping it tightly. "I said no," Harley said strictly. The man began to squeeze her hand now very tightly that Harley could feel his nails digging in her hand. He pulled her to his face. "No one says no to me, bruja," he exclaimed. Just then, the man was thrown to the side and held down by security guards. Harley turned her head to see that Bruce was the one who threw the man. He took Harley's hand and examined it closely, seeing blood trickling down one of her fingers. Harley heard the boss of the company yelling at the Ed. "Harley, are you all right?" Bruce asked with deep concern in his voice. Harley could feel his blue eyes boring into her. She gave a small smile. "I'm fine," she said shortly. Bruce took her briefcase and led her out of the building and into the car they came here in. "Really, Bruce, I'm fine," Harley said, flinching at the pain as Bruce wrapped up her hand. They were in Bruce's hotel room, sitting on his bed. "What happened?" he asked, his question seeming more like a command. Harley thought his voice just then and there sounded exactly like someone she knew. He just came over and started flirting with me. I told him I wasn't interested and I guess he got angry," she said. She flinched again when Bruce was taping her wrapped hand. "Sorry," he apologized. Harley looked at her tapped hand. It reminded her of the Joker. No, Harley. Don't think of him," she told herself mentally. She rubbed her tapped-up hand softly. "Thanks, Bruce," she said with a smile. "You're welcome, Harley," Bruce said, smiling also. They looked at each other and all was quiet. Harley cleared her throat and smiled. "So that meeting today was really long," she said, trying to make a new conversation. Bruce loosened his tie and rubbed his neck. "Yeah, it was exhausting," he agreed with her. "How could you understand all that math? I couldn't keep up with what he was saying. It felt like I was back in high school," she laughed. Bruce chuckled. "I'm really skilled in math and science mostly. Those were my strongest subjects actually. And besides, you need great math skills to run a multi-billionaire company," he explained. Harley nodded, latching on to every word. "So did you make the deal?" she asked. Bruce smiled and nodded. "That's great. Congrats," Harley exclaimed with a large grin on her face. "This calls for a celebration. The co-owner of the company pulled me over to ask me if I would like to come to the party tonight in the ballroom of this hotel. Would you like to come?" Bruce asked. Harley's mood couldn't have been brighter. Every time she was around Bruce Wayne, she couldn't help but be happy. He had such charisma that he would make people in a hospital happy just by his presence. "I would love to, but I don't have a dress," Harley said. Bruce waved his hand. "Not to worry, I'll come with you and buy you one," he answered. Harley was surprised. Her boss buying her a dress? For her? His personal secretary? Harley shook her head. "Oh, Bruce, no please don't dash," she was cut off by Bruce raising his hand up. "Nope. Not taking no for an answer," he said. Harley laughed and shook her head at the incredible man in front of her. "You really are something else, Bruce Wayne." Harley was in the changing room while Bruce was sitting down on a couch in there. Harley wanted to ask him his opinion on the dresses she tried on. So far they've tried 7 dresses, but none pleased Harley. "So why don't you tell me about yourself, Bruce? You know so much about me, so why not the reverse?" she asked while changing. Bruce ran a hand through his black hair and chuckled. "Well, I was born to Martha and Thomas Wayne on March 17th. I grew up living a happy life until a warm summer night when I was 8 years. We were walking through an alley that we thought was a good shortcut to our car. We were stopped by a mugger who wanted my mother's pearls. But my father wouldn't have any of it. He stepped in between the mugger and my mother, and was shot in the process. My mother screamed and the mugger pulled on her pearl necklace, but it broke. So he shot her too, in cold blood. He left me there motherless and fatherless. I stood over their bodies crying. I can still remember every minute, every second," he said grimly with his head resting on his knuckles. During the whole story, Harley was clutching onto the dress she was about to put on. A tear escaped her eye and she quickly wiped it away. "I'm really sorry, Bruce. But I bet they're proud of you now," she said, trying to cheer him up. "You really think that?" he asked, looking away to his right. "I know that. Look at the good that you do. A philanthropist who donates millions of dollars to so many charities, and you're continuing your family business. I truly know they're proud," she finished. Bruce smiled and was deep in thought when Harley came out of the dressing room. "What do you think?" she asked. He looked forward and couldn't take his eyes off the woman. She was wearing a long black gown that sparkled with every movement she made. It had long sleeves and a black glitter cape that came running off the shoulders and stopped in the middle of her back. Harley looked at Bruce's face and blushed. "It's that bad?" she asked. Bruce got up and shook his head. "No, it's amazing. On you," he said. Harley smiled and put a stray hair behind her ear. "Yeah, I think I want this dress." The party was really fun for Harley and Bruce, and the good thing was that their rooms were just above a couple floors. Somehow, Harley ended up in Bruce's room again. She sat on his bed and took off her shoes. "Heels are nice, but God do they hurt," she exclaimed, rubbing her feet. Bruce laughed and poured a bottle of champagne into 2 glasses. He walked over to Harley and gave her one of the glasses. She gladly took it and they both cheered. "To the company deal," Bruce said with a smile. Harley raised her glass and clanked it with his. "To the company deal," she repeated. After a couple of glasses, they stopped and just began to talk to each other. "So how many more days do we have in Spain?" she asked, her voice slurring a bit. 5. Bruce said. Harley smiled. "Oh, I don't want to leave. It's so relaxing here," she said, stretching out her arms. Bruce laughed, his voice slurring a bit but not a lot. "I know, Harley, but we have to get home to Gotham sometime," he said. Harley looked at him and did something that surprised him. She kissed him on the lips and wrapped her arms around his neck. Bruce was taken aback, but leaned into the kiss. He wrapped his arms around Harley and laid on top of her. They kissed for a while, but Bruce stopped and helped Harley back up. She leaned on him and nuzzled herself into him. He wrapped his arm around the raven-haired beauty protectively. She smiled and Bruce could hear her breathing. "I love you, Bruce Wayne," she sighed. Bruce looked at her with wide eyes and saw she was fast asleep. He carried her into her hotel room and tucked her under the covers. Before he left, he planted a passionate kiss on her forehead. "Good night, Harley," he whispered and departed into his room. He shut the doors between the rooms and sighed as he changed out of his clothes. He wanted the moment to be real, but it wasn't. Harley was drunk. She probably didn't mean it. Bruce looked at the clock and decided to give a call to Barbara tomorrow to see how things were going in Gotham. "How is everything over there in Spain?" Barbara asked through the phone. Bruce was resting on his bed in his white undershirt and pants, flipping through the TV channels. It's going fine and everything. Wayne Enterprises made the deal with the company, he responded. That's awesome, Bruce. How's Harley Quinn? Barbara asked. It's Harleen Quinzel, not Quinn Barbara. And she's fine, Bruce said in a serious tone. Are you certain she's changed, Bruce? I mean, this is Harley we're talking about. She has been a psychiatrist. I think she can manipulate people. Bruce frowned. So you think she's manipulating me? He asked. No. I just want you to be careful. Be safe, she said. I'm fine. Did anything happen? Any crime? Bruce asked, ignoring Barbara's statement. Well, other than Killer Croc and the Riddler, no one else. The Joker seems to be quiet. Too quiet, she said. Bruce rubbed his chin. We all know that the Joker never stays quiet for too long. He's probably planning something. Keep me posted. Bruce finished. You got it, Barbara said before disconnecting. Daddy, look, a black-haired girl about the age of 7 exclaimed while pointing to a colorful winged butterfly. A handsome man next to her laughed. Yes, princess, it's a butterfly, he said, hugging her. The little girl squealed with laughter as the man began spinning her up in the air until they both landed softly on the green grass. I felt like a butterfly, Daddy, the little girl said, still giggling. The man smiled widely and gave her a kiss on the nose. Oh, sweetheart, I don't ever want you to grow up, he said. The little girl sat up with a confused look on her face. Why, Daddy? She asked so innocently. Because when you grow up, we probably won't be able to have the fun we're having now. There will be other things you'd want to do, he explained. She pouted and put her hands on her non-existent hips. Then I won't grow up. I'll stay your little princess forever, she said, hugging her father. Oh, you'll always be my little princess, not matter what, he said, softly caressing her long black locks. I love you, Daddy, the little girl said, closing her eyes. I love you too, Harley. Harley's eyes shot open quickly. She looked around and saw that she was in her bed. When she tried to sit up, a sharp pain rang into her head. Ugh! Harley groaned, grabbing her head. What the hell did I do last night? She said, laughing slightly. She got out of the bed and noticed she was in the clothes from the night before. She went into the bathroom and began to run the bath. She striped out of her gown and went into the shower. Harley let the hot warm water wet her long black hair. She closed her eyes and felt the warmth of the steam the shower was giving off. It had been so many years since Harley had dreamt about her father. Whenever she had a dream about him, something good would be coming along. The last time was when she got accepted into Gotham University. And it was always a dream of him and her having the time of their lives. Harley sighed. She missed her father dearly. He was the one who raised her, until his sudden death when she was 9. She had been placed to a family who worked with her father at his job. They didn't really care that much for her either. After 10 minutes, Harley finally came out and dressed a soft purple everyday dress that stopped at her knees. She combed her hair in a bun and slipped on some flats. She decided to continue reading a book she picked up called 19 Minutes. Harley was up to the part about the boy going on a rampage through his high school. Reminds me of someone, she muttered under her breath. Who? Harley jumped and saw Bruce standing in the doorway between his and her rooms. Sorry, the door was open and I decided to drop in and check on you, he said with that gorgeous smile of his. Harley noticed he was wearing a tan-colored pants and a short-sleeved brown shirt. He looked good in business suits, but he looked great in everyday clothes. Harley smiled and put her book down. That's nice, she said. Bruce walked over and sat down on her bed. What book are you reading? He asked. Oh, it's called 19 Minutes, it's about a boy who shoots up his high school and how he gets tried for at a trial, she replied, showing Bruce the cover. It seems like a great book to read, Bruce commented. Harley thought for a second. I can read it to you one day, she offered in a low voice. To her surprise, the billionaire grinned and nodded. I would love that, he said. I actually came in here to ask you if you would like to go on a walk with me," he said. Harley looked at him, a smile creeping up on her face. "You mean, like a walk with a friend?" she asked. Bruce nodded and Harley got up. "Okay, sure," she said, grabbing her purse. The two explored Spain for hours, talking and laughing with each other. They began to grow on each other and were acting like the best of friends. They were now in a park where the sun was almost about to set. They found a set of swings and sat on them. Harley pushed herself in the swing while Bruce listened to her talk. "That party was hilarious. Do you remember that lady dancing on the table?" she asked, trying to suppress her laughter but failing miserably. Bruce chuckled. "How could I forget? Security had to come and grab her before she could fall off." They both laughed at the memory. Harley then noticed that Bruce was just sitting there. "Why don't you push yourself?" she asked. Bruce shook his head. "I'm fine, really," he replied. Harley cocked her eyebrow and gave him a look. "Do you ever have fun, or are you always so stiff and grim?" she asked. He looked at her and laughed. "I've heard that before," he said. Harley got up and ran behind him. "Harley, what are you doing?" he asked. She began to push Bruce's seat slowly. "I'm pushing you," she said. "Could you help?" Bruce sighed and lifted his feet off the ground slightly. The seat began to move properly now. Harley smiled satisfied and sat back down. "You like things to go your way, don't you, Harley?" Bruce asked. Harley just smiled. "Well, most of the time, yeah." The days just seemed to fly by so fast that Harley became sad. She was having such an amazing time in the warm country of Spain, and especially with Bruce Wayne. But alas, not all good things last. At least that was what Harley thought. But little did she know, she was going to be proven wrong in a month or two from now. They were at the airport and Harley was playing around with her cell phone when a reminder popped up. Harley read it and her eyes widened. "Bruce Wayne's birthday next week," it said. Harley bit her bottom lip. She totally forgot about her own boss' birthday. She would have to start planning when she got home. "Ready to go?" Bruce asked, walking up to Harley. She turned off her cell and nodded, getting up. "Definitely. Are you sure you don't want a ride?" Bruce asked as they were waiting outside of Gotham City National Airport. Harley hugged her trench coat as the semi-cold air blew in her direction. Why the hell was it freezing in March? Harley smiled. "Nah, my best friend is picking me up. She should be here in a minute or two," Harley said, glancing at the clock on the building. Just then, a dark red-colored car came up beside the curve and beeped. Inside the car, Bruce could see a red-haired woman wearing a hat and sunglasses. Harley waved and turned to her boss. "That's my ride. I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Wayne," she said, walking to the car. Bruce waved with a smile on his face. "Goodbye, Miss Quinzel," he said as Harley closed her car door. Bruce watched as the red car drove off and into the street. Bruce knew exactly who the driver was. Pamela Isley, or better known as Poison Ivy. Bruce hadn't had any trouble with her as Batman lately, so he couldn't complain. As a black limo pulled up, Bruce got inside and greeted his butler. "Hello, Master Wayne, did you have a good time in Spain?" Alfred asked. Bruce smiled and looked out the window. "I did, Alfred. I sure did." Ivy was putting Harley's things away in her closet and drawers while Harley, being exhausted, was trying to rest on her bed. "So he bought you a dress?" Ivy exclaimed. Harley turned her head. "Yes, it was a gown actually." Ivy rolled her eyes. "Oh, shut the hell up. Was it expensive?" Ivy asked, closing a drawer. "Yes, it was. And stop telling me to shut up, you weed." Harley mumbled on her pillow. Ivy zipped up the empty suitcase and threw it into Harley's closet. She sat down with her arms crossed and a smirk on her face. "Harley, are you that much of an idiot?" Ivy asked. Harley turned over and lay on her back. "What?" Harley asked. Ivy groaned loudly and rubbed her face. "How many times do I have to say it?" do I have to spell it out for you? Bruce Wayne loves you. Go for it, Ivy screeched. Harley closed her eyes slowly. Just because he bought me a dress and we had some fun doesn't mean he's in love with me, Red. Friends do that for each other, Harley said, trying to reason with her friend. Ivy got up and put her hands on her hips. Friends? Friends buy each other expensive gowns? Friends go swimming with each other in a friendly manner? Friends talk about each other's love interests? Harley blinked dumbly at her friend. Yeah, she said flatly. I meant a girl and guy friend, Ivy said, rubbing her forehead. Oh, Harley said. She quickly sat up. But Ivy, I'm his secretary. A secretary and boss dating each other? What would people think? What if it got in the news? The Joker would find out. Harley said. All the villains would, Ivy pondered her friend's explanation. What if you secretly dated, she suggested. Harley scoffed. Yeah, as if that will work. Things like that always get leaked to the media. And besides, it's Bruce friggin' Wayne. The media is totally nuts over the guy. What he eats for breakfast is front page news, she said, lying back down. Ivy looked at her friend closely. Harles, do you have feelings for the man? Ivy asked. Harley looked up again. What? She asked, even though she heard her friend's question very clearly. Do you have feelings for Bruce Wayne? Ivy repeated. Harley went into deep thought. Ever since she worked for him, he had always put her first. He was generous, kind, and handsome. He treated Harley a way that she had never been treated before. The Joker? Forget about him, he threw Harley around like a piece of shit. He never bought her anything, talked to her like a human being, or any of the things Mr. Wayne did. Well, what do you expect from a psychopathic clown? But, the time in Spain really gave Harley a chance to bond with Bruce and his true self. He showed his feelings and his protectiveness too. She can remember the furious look in his usually calm cerulean eyes. He seemed so angry, as if someone threatened his life or someone close to him. But how did he feel? Did he feel something for her besides friendship? What about the time at the charity event at his house? Did he feel something then? Harley shrugged her shoulders. I don't know, she said truthfully. We are becoming friend-like, but I've got to keep my head up, you know? I have to be careful of who I date. I don't want to be in a relationship that would turn into one like the Joker's. Ivy stayed silent and then nodded. It's all right, Harl. I know what that clown did to you. But, I really think you should give him a chance. Bruce Wayne is not the Joker. Oh, definitely not, she said. Harley pondered for a moment and smiled. Maybe, she said. Ivy smirked and got out of Harley's bedroom. Night, Ivy said. Harley yawned. Good night, she called. Yes, I need the balloons, food, and decorations by Thursday. The party is on Friday. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Harley ended her call to the party company for her plans for Bruce Wayne's birthday. It was Wednesday and she was already so unorganized. How am I gonna get him to the Myers Palace? Harley thought. The Myers Palace was a big building that people loved to rent out for parties of all kinds. Harley spent almost 2 hours on the phone debating with the manager for a Friday night party. It was the most popular place in Gotham City. Harley was pacing in the ladies' bathroom and stopped when the door opened up. Walking in was her coworker and somewhat friend Diana. Diana smiled brightly at Harley, showing off her white teeth. Hello, Harley, she said happily. Hey Diana, I was wondering if you know if Mr. Wayne has anyone he treats like family? Diana pondered for a moment. Yes, I believe he has a butler named Alfred. Diana answered. Harley could remember something in the corner of her mind that told her that he did have a butler. Harley smiled at her coworker. Thanks, Diana, she said, about to leave. Why did you want to know? Diana asked. Harley turned to her and smiled. Well, Mr. Wayne's birthday is on Friday, and as his fellow secretary, I'm planning a party for him. Diana grinned. Oh, that's sweet, she said. Where's it at? Harley gave Diana a business card for Myers Palace and watched her eyes go wide. Myers Palace? How'd you get that? Diana asked, not believing her eyes. Harley shrugged. I have my ways. She gave Diana a farewell and went back to work. Where do you want the chocolate cheesecake, Ms. Quinzel? One of the workers asked. Harley looked around. Please put it next to the other mini desserts, she replied. Ms. Quinzel, where do you want the flowers? A woman worker asked. Harley looked around. I want them hanging all around, not too much and not too little. Harley was very busy telling the people where and how she wanted the things at the Myers Palace. She had put the whole building for Bruce Wayne's birthday. She had called the florists, caterers, hired security, ordered photographers, decorators, and had people to do valet parking. Harley wasn't a professional interior designer, but the place was getting to look very good. She was sitting down in a chair writing the invites to the different people. One name came up in her mind and Harley smirked evilly. Miss Veronica Vreeland? I don't think so, she continued to write names down. What? It's not Harley's fault that woman's attitude isn't in check. Usually, Poison Ivy would be the one waiting for Harley to get ready, but tonight it was the other way around. Harley was sitting in the living room with no coat or anything, just herself and her dress on her. She decided to wear the same black dress that Bruce bought her in Spain. She quickly checked the clock and yelled out to Ivy. Red. Come on. I've got to be there an hour early to make sure everything is going all right, she could hear Ivy grunt. I'm coming. These heels won't fit my feet, Ivy yelled. Harley rolled her eyes and picked up a pair of green flats from under the couch. She threw them at Ivy's door. Wear those, Harley said. She saw Ivy pick them up and after about a minute she came out. Ivy was sporting a short leaf green strapless dress that's length stopped over her knees. Her auburn-colored hair was in a bun with a side bang. She was wearing a pair of green glasses that Harley bought from a dollar store. They weren't seeing glasses, but they did help conceal her identity pretty well. Let's go, Harles, Ivy said. Harley got up and before exiting, she turned to Ivy. Red, please don't seduce any men there, Ivy rolled her eyes. And I wore this dress for nothing. Everything is set in place, Ms. Quinzel, a worker said. Harley smiled at him. Thank you so much, she responded. So what time are people getting here? Ivy asked, walking next to Harley. Harley checked her cell phone. It's 6:30, people should be getting here soon. Just then, they heard footsteps coming into the large hall. They turned to see some workers who Harley worked with come in. She grinned and went over to greet them. Ivy walked over to the bar area. Get me a red wine, baby, she said seductively to the bartender, who blushed like a tomato and went straight to work. Harley couldn't believe the turnout. Well, actually, she could. All of Gotham's rich and some middle class were here, including the mayor himself. Harley, it's 7:10, where's Bruce? Ivy asked. Don't worry, Ivy, I talked to Bruce's butler yesterday. He said Bruce would be there soon because he's the one driving him. He said he'll make sure he comes at a decent time. Harley explained. But how is he going to persuade him to come? Tell him it's another party that requires his assistance? Ivy asked sarcastically. Harley nodded. You took the words right out of my mouth, Red. The doors to the ballroom opened up and one of the guys who were valet parking the cars ran in. He's here. He's here. Bruce Wayne is here, he said. Harley stood on top of the stage in the ballroom. Shoo. Everyone please quiet down. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. That man over there, yes you sir, is going to turn off the light. And when Bruce Wayne comes in, we all yell our surprise and happy birthday. Got it? The people in the crowd nodded and said yes to Harley. The man turned off the light and they all waited in darkness. Then before they knew it, they heard voices. Right through those doors, Mr. Wayne, a woman said. "Thank you," they heard him say. When the double doors opened, everyone jumped and yelled, "Happy birthday!" Bruce was startled for a second, but it was replaced quickly by happiness and some laughter. People were going up to him and patting his back. Harley stood on stage with a smile that she couldn't wipe away. It felt so good to do this for him. She felt her heart warm up and pride swelled up inside her. "Okay, who set all this up?" Bruce asked with a chuckle. Harley went towards the microphone again. Guilty Mr. Wayne," she joked. The people laughed along and Bruce looked towards the stage to see his drop-dead perfect secretary smiling widely. He automatically grinned and cocked his eyebrow. "Miss Quinzel, how did you know about my birthday?" he asked. Harley put her hands up in mock defense. "Hey, I'm a secretary. I'm supposed to know these things." Bruce and Harley kept each other's gaze for a few seconds until he was pulled over by a rich couple. Harley came off the stage and went towards Ivy, who was sitting down with a smile on her face. "What was that?" she asked. Harley looked at her and, knowing what she meant, answered, "Nothing, we just looked at each other," Harley said, playing with the flowers in the crystal vase in the center of the table. "Harley," the two women turned to see the man of the hour, Mr. Bruce Wayne. Harley smiled brightly, showing her pure white teeth. "Hi, Bruce. This is my close friend Ivy," Harley introduced. Bruce smiled. "Hello, Ivy," he said. Poison Ivy smirked. "Why, hello," she said in a sultry voice. He turned back to Harley. "Would you care to dance?" he asked. Harley nodded. Harley quickly kicked Ivy in the ankle before getting up. She heard Ivy grunt and suppressed a laugh. When she started dancing with Bruce, they began a conversation. "Thank you again for the party. I still can't believe you planned all this," he said, smiling down at her. Harley frowned in a joking manner. "What? You don't think I can do all this party planning?" she teased. She couldn't help but laugh a bit from Bruce's look of regret. "Oh no. I didn't mean it like that, Harley," he said with an apologetic tone in his voice. Harley shook her head. "I was only kidding, Bruce." Harley giggled. Bruce sighed a breath of relief and chuckled lightly. "I noticed that you're always concerned about me," Harley said, trying to heat up the conversation. "Well, you are someone really close to me," he said. Harley felt her heart skip a beat. "How so?" she asked, wanting to know more. "Other than being my personal secretary, you're also one of the few real friends I have," he said. Harley frowned and felt sad for him. "Few real friends?" "Few real friends," she said aloud her thoughts. He nodded. "Yes. Everyone thinks when you're rich and famous you have a lot of friends. But you can't really call them friends, more like acquaintances. People usually hang around me for fame and because I have money, but mostly publicity. It can be difficult for me to find real friends. I guess I'm not that social," he chuckled to himself. Harley looked up at this man with her baby blue eyes. She felt anger inside her. How could people use a man like this? The idea enraged her. "Like Veronica," Harley said, not noticing she said this aloud for Bruce to hear. He sighed. "Yes, Veronica." Harley listened to him closely, making sure to latch on to each word. "She wanted to control me. Control my every move and every word I would say. She wasn't obsessive, well, kind of. I believe she hung out with me for many reasons. One being that it would make her more famous than she already was." Harley looked away for a moment. "I know the feeling. Being controlled, I mean." Bruce put his finger under her chin and lifted her head up. His eyes burned into hers. Blue on blue. "Yes, but you freed yourself from that control. Never forget that," he said. Harley couldn't help but get tears in her eyes. She cursed herself mentally to not cry, but she failed. The tears rained down her cheeks. She began to have a wave of emotions go through her body and mostly in her heart. This man in front of her made her feel alive again. He made her feel fine with being her real true self. She felt like she didn't have to hide anything around or from him. Harley put her arms around his neck and tippy-toed to reach his lips. Harley felt the world around her melt, especially when Bruce responded by deepening the kiss and wrapping his arms around Harley's body. They released the kiss when they saw quick flashes of light. Photographers were taking pictures of them. Harley thought about the pictures getting in the paper. But when she looked at Bruce again, she couldn't care less. Bruce led Harley out of the hall and out onto the balcony. He held Harley again in his arms and kissed her passionately. This is it. This is it. Harley kept thinking happily. When they pulled away, they couldn't stop looking into each other's eyes. So where does this take us? Harley asked. Bruce gave her his charming smile. I think this makes us a couple, Ms. Quinzel. Bruce said. Harley tapped his nose with her finger playfully. Nah, Harley. Call me Harley. They both laughed as Bruce dipped Harley and kissed her again.